I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I hope you had a great weekend. Quite a bit has happened. Quite a bit has happened over the weekend. I want to start off by giving shout outs to people in the chat. And I do want to let you guys know we are going to do a call-in after the show tonight. I'm pretty sure you're hyped for that because we do have a lot of things to discuss. I will not be able to play, obviously, music videos like while I'm live streaming. Obviously, I don't want the copyright infringement and all that jazz. However, during the call-in show, I am going to play part of that, or at least that whole song of that Macklemore has made for Gaza. So you will get to see that and see the video for that on the Zoom. But let's go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat. What's going on? CBC Voter says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs. What is up, fam? Shout out to you, fellow citizen, says, love, Sabby, love. Greetings, David, says, Sabby, I do not support Joe Biden or his whole administration. Well, David, let me let you know something. Neither do I. Neither do I. Shout out to Tim, says, if the Black community put half the effort and energy they put into rap battles into Gaza and their fight for liberation, we could get somewhere, but always with the BS, it's all a distraction. We're actually going to get into that conversation tonight because someone did decide to do that. So we'll get into that. Shout out to Miguel, says peace. Greetings, Joan. Is it Joan or Joanne? I think it's Joanne. I'm not on X. Would Twitter Space be accessible to me? Yes. I actually found that out earlier today. So for those of you wondering about the poll question, it has been brought to my attention that some people may want to do this on Twitter Spaces versus Zoom. So that's why I have that poll question. Like when we have the call-in show after the show, what do you prefer? I'm like flexible. I can do whatever, right? But what do you prefer? So to answer that question, Joanne, I did actually check that today. And apparently with X, you don't have to have an X account in order to participate in a Twitter space. You just need to have access to the internet. That was not always the case. So that's a new feature that they have added. Shout out to Salma, says President Biden condemned the word intifada. He may not know that intifada is used in the Hebrew Bible. Intifada means shake off, according to Hebrew lexicon, Hebrew word. Interesting. Yeah, I think someone had mentioned that before. Shout out to Hannah G, says, hi, Sabby. What's going on? All one same, says, make it a great day, everyone. Peace. Shout out to Red 6, says, hello, Sabby. Greetings, Jacqueline, says, hey, Sabby, and everyone in the chat. Shout out to Lorez, says, hiya, Sabrina, Eric, Corey, and RBN fam. Breaking Point's debating itself? Yes, and it was good. It was good. We're going to discuss that. They were actually having a debate about the campus protests. It's a good one, and we're going to time into that tonight. Have not followed Drake Kendo's story. Looking forward to it. Hope you had a good weekend, Sabby. Smash the like, y'all. Yeah, and in reference to the Drake and Kendrick Lamar, diss track that happened all over the weekend, diss track after diss track, whatever. what I really want to get to tonight is at the root of all of it, what is really important right now at this point in time. We can talk a little bit about style and all that kind of jazz, but I really want to get to what is most important. Shout out to Lorez says, sup, Jacqueline Lemmings. Greetings, Mark says, Sabby. Shout out to Robin says, hey, Sabby, happy to catch you live in a long time. Let's do this. What's up? Shout out to Silver Surfer says, happy Taco Tuesday, Sabby. Yes, Silver Surfer knows I love tacos. Shout out to David says, hey, all. I didn't think about that, David. Choice would be Discord, but I know not everyone's down with that. We can talk about that tonight on Zoom. I know some people don't feel comfortable with Discord just because it's not user friendly if you're not familiar with it, but we can talk about that. Shout out to Sean says, cool music. Greetings, Casey sends solidarity and fire. Shout out to Midnight Toker says, have a great show, Sabs. And shout out to Desert Mantis who says hello to Sean, the Accord Lord FYT Miller. Interesting. Greetings, Eric T. Red says, hey, and yo, here we go. And shout out to Rick Sola says, hey, y'all. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. We have so much to discuss. A lot happened over the weekend. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate you peeps. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies. Don't forget about the Sabbies. I don't know why I said it that way. And of course, members as well. You can see all of their names listed here and also scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies, just like Madonna, just going with the first name here, Jay. So shout out to Jay for becoming a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. There was a question I was going to answer really quick in the chat, and I don't know how I missed it, but I saw it earlier. Someone was asking about lipstick. I can't find it now, but I saw it earlier. Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and answer that question. Someone was asking, can you help me find a good lipstick color, how to do that? Yeah. So what you're going to want to do is you want to go to a cosmetic store that actually allows you to try them on. That's the first big step, because the color that is on the actual lipstick container, it's never the way it looks when you put it on. And certain shades look different on different people. Like, for example, red doesn't look the same on me as it would on my mom or like my best friend. So you really want to go to a place. Yeah, Salt and Pepper Nose. Try MAC. Ulta, I think, also lets you try them on. You want to test it out, because the last thing you want to do is buy some, and lipstick can be expensive. The last thing you want to do is buy it because it looks one way on the lipstick tube, and then when you get home, you try it on and it doesn't look like that color at all. Now you just wasted your money and you can't return it because you just used it. It's like underwear. You can't return it, right? So that's my tip to you, is definitely go to a cosmetic store or a makeup counter that will allow you to try it on. That's how I do that. That's how I do it, because otherwise you can end up wasting money if it doesn't look right. It's crazy, but it happens. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. None of those other call-ins alts fit your fancy. I don't know what that means. Alts? None of those other call-ins alts fit your fan. Yeah, those don't work for what we do. Oh, the ones you sent me before. They don't work for what I do. That's the problem. Those are more podcast style call-ins, meaning that only one person can be speaking at a time. It's different. I can't have people just raise their hand and chime in, and it's a different style. Retro Gamer says Kendrick's diss tracks were way better. We're going to get into all of that tonight, guys. All of that tonight. But first and foremost, let's get started with the first story. So if you have not been aware, it appears that Bernie Sanders does have an announcement. Oh, wait a minute. I got to show the thumbnail. Sorry, guys. It's been a busy day. I'm ready to jump right in. Fam. Okay. Tonight, what are we discussing? I was ready to go. Go. What are we discussing tonight? Tonight, we are discussing Krystal and Saagar debate. Believe it or not, Krystal and Saagar actually debated each other. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what happened with that conversation about the campus protest. And I think we really want to chime in here because there was something that I noticed that Saagar seemed to be willing to overlook until Krystal brought it to his attention. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to discuss probably the most interesting story that has happened over the past couple of days is that the IDF enters Rafah. So you'll see there's a picture there of Netanyahu. We're going to do a whole timeline of what happened over the weekend. So we are going to start with Israel choosing to close down journalist stations there, certain ones, one in particular. We're going to start with that and work our way through today. We're also going to discuss Bernie Sanders' announcement. Yeah, so Bernie Sanders did have a huge announcement. We're going to get into that, and I want to hear how you guys think about that. And last but not least, we are going to discuss, I'm pretty sure you've all heard about it by now, DJ Vlad called out over Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Now, DJ Vlad is the gentleman there in the middle. If you are not familiar with him, you will know who he is by the end of this show, because that whole battle between Kendrick and Drake actually caused a stir here among DJ Vlad, and he basically showed himself to be a full Karen. Yes, the gentleman who interviews all of these hip hop artists basically put his Karen-esque on display. We're going to talk about that, and we are also going to start the Louisiana ballot measures. So that's what we're doing tonight, fam. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the first story about Bernie Sanders. So I was pretty shocked, as some of you probably were as well, when I saw that Bernie Sanders had an announcement. And the first thing that I assumed was, please don't tell me he's going to try to run for president again. So that actually was not the announcement. So Bernie is not running for president, but he is doing something else. And I want to get your take on this. Let's go ahead and dive in here. Here is Bernie's speech.
Let me thank the people of Vermont from the bottom of my heart for giving me the opportunity to serve in the United States Senate. It has been the honor of my life. Today, I am announcing my intention to seek another term. And let me take a few minutes to tell you why.
So Bernie Sanders has decided to run for re-election for the U.S. Senate. First and foremost, how old is Bernie Sanders now at this point? You know, like I would have assumed that if it's not a presidential announcement, he's going to announce that he is retiring. You know, he's pretty much up there in age. But no, the announcement is that he is running for re-election for the U.S. Senate. Now, listen to what he says here, because I think this is pretty revealing.
As the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, as part of the U.S. Senate Democratic Leadership Team, as a senior member of the Veterans Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Environment and Public Works Committee, I have been and will be, if re-elected, in a strong position to provide the kind of help that Vermonters need in these difficult times. In recent years, working together, we have made important progress in addressing some very serious challenges. But much, much more needs to be done if we are to become the state and the nation our people deserve. Together, we have made Vermont the leading state in the country in terms of per capita utilization of community health centers. That means that up to 190,000 Vermonters every year are receiving their primary health care, their dental care, their mental health counseling, and lower cost prescription drugs at these centers.
So this is something I want to mention here as well. Part of the reason why Bernie Sanders does continue to get reelected is because if you actually go to Vermont, and I go to Vermont usually in the summer, at least once a year. If you actually go to Vermont, a lot of people in Vermont really do love Bernie Sanders, not because of his presidential races, but because of some of the things that he's been able to accomplish for people in Vermont. So that's why a lot of people there like him. Now, granted, his office was just set on fire. I think it was like a couple weeks ago. I don't know what that was all about. But a lot of people there do like him. Not all Vermonters like him, though. You'll go to Vermont, believe it or not, you can go to Vermont and you'll also see Trump signs. There are also Trump supporters in Vermont, so not everybody is in love with Bernie Sanders in Vermont, but he does have a favorable rating there.
But that is not enough. In my view, the United States must join every other major country on earth in guaranteeing health care to all of our people as a human right, not a privilege. And that's a fight we must continue to wage. Together, we have begun the process of lowering the cost of prescription drugs. We're making insulin more affordable to seniors and all those struggling with diabetes. We're lowering the cost of inhalers for those with asthma and COPD. We're finally beginning to negotiate prices with the big drug companies. But that is not enough. We need to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry and end the absurdity of Americans paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs.
And we are not going to be able to do that by supporting and endorsing establishment candidates that are unwilling to support Medicare for all or any type of universal healthcare program in this country. So that leads to this question: why is Bernie Sanders still endorsing those types of candidates? So I think the question we need to ask ourselves at this point in time, is it helpful to have Bernie Sanders in the Senate, or is it harmful? There's a couple of examples I can bring up, one being Yemen to mention. Let's start with foreign policy, right? Remember, earlier, I think it was late last year, Bernie Sanders was supposed to bring a bill to the Senate, to the floor, to stop, obviously, the slaughter in Yemen and to completely exit. The U.S. government gave those weapons to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia used those weapons on people in Yemen. Yemen is an absolute disaster. You can look these pictures up for yourself. And Bernie Sanders was basically tapped on the shoulder by Joe Biden, who told him, don't do it because it's not going to pass. That's one example of foreign policy. Another example of foreign policy, when it comes to Gaza, Bernie Sanders was one of the last people to call for a ceasefire. And this is after people like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and even AOC had called for the ceasefire. He didn't want to utter those words. Bernie Sanders was one of the last people to advocate for some type of self-determination for the Palestinian people, again, late to the table. So at this point in time, is it more helpful or more harmful to have Bernie Sanders in the Senate? Is it time to pass this over to another generation? If everybody else is beating you to the most important issues and they're correct on the issue, you're dead last, then you need to start asking yourself that question. I think it was quite embarrassing to see even some establishment Democrats call for a ceasefire before Bernie Sanders was willing to do so.
Earlier this year, we saw devastating flooding across our state, further illustrating the deadly effects of climate change. And I will tell you that visiting the communities impacted in Barrie and Montpelier and Weston, Ludlow, and other towns, and talking with Vermonters who had lost their homes and businesses, that was a painful experience. Together, we must continue to combat climate change by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
How are you going to fight back against climate change if you're endorsing people like Joe Biden, who is saying he's taking measures to, help with climate change, but at the same time, he's also causing more harm, right? So Joe Biden did sign off on the Willow Project. This was after he said he would not sign on any more, approve any more projects that were going to include more drilling, but he did that anyway. Okay, so I want you to listen to the things that Bernie Sanders is saying, and then I want you to think about his actions, because the thing that politicians do very well is that they are very good speakers. They're really great at saying the things that you want to hear. But you have to think about legislation. You have to think about how do they vote. You have to think about their actions. And when it comes to Bernie Sanders' actions, yeah, he's been good on some issues, but he's also flip-flopped on some other issues because he doesn't want to push back against the establishment in the Democratic Party.
I'm proud that I was able to bring $62 million into the state to help our people afford solar panels for their rooftops and additional money for heat pumps. But that is not enough. This is a global crisis. We must work with every country on earth to cut carbon emissions and save the planet for our kids and future generations. As the former chair of the Veterans Committee, I am proud of the role my office has played in making sure that veterans in our state get the quality health care they deserve, whether it's at the White River Junction Medical Center or community-based outpatient clinics around the state. And I'm excited about major new VA health clinics, which will be built both in Chittenden County and for Vermont veterans in the southern part of our state.
See, this is again why he has a pretty high approval rating in the state of Vermont, because he's done a lot for people in Vermont. And speaking of healthcare for veterans, I can tell you from, firsthand experience, the VA has been awful for veterans. I'm talking about mounds and mounds of paperwork, asking them to come back over and over again, come back 6 months later. We're talking about, veterans that are dealing with PTSD, veterans that have been injured, in war, that type of thing. The VA is slow. It's slow, honey. And that is something that needs to be fixed all across the country, not just in Vermont. It's a terrible system, the way that they treat the veterans after they've fought for their country.
But that is not enough. We must vigorously oppose those who want to privatize the VA and make sure that every veteran gets the quality care and the benefits they have earned. I am proud of my 100% lifetime voting record in defense of women's rights and the absolute need for women to control their own bodies. And I'm proud of Vermont for becoming the first state to enshrine abortion rights in our Constitution. But that is not enough. We must codify Roe v. Wade into national law and do everything possible to oppose the well-funded right-wing effort to roll back the gains that women have achieved after decades of struggle. No more second-class citizenship for the women of Vermont or America. I'm proud of the role my office has played in canceling student debt for millions of Americans, including nearly 6,500 here in Vermont. But that's not enough. In a highly competitive global economy, we need to make sure that all public colleges and universities are tuition-free and that every Vermonter, regardless of income, can get the higher education they need to pursue their dreams.
Well, Bernie, that's not going to happen if you keep endorsing candidates that are obviously in favor of the high, that was a bad place to pause that, but in favor of the high defense budget that we have. They're still supporting these wars abroad, some of them which you actually voted for, by the way. When you think about all the money that is invested in our defense budget, if we were to cut that bloated defense budget, just think about the things that we could do for people in this country. When it comes to funding the war in Ukraine, when it comes to funding Israel, funding all these military coups abroad, there's so much more money that we could actually keep in this country and help people here. And we could have those free colleges and universities. But also, you can't forget this as well, which Bernie Sanders isn't going to tell you. One of the reasons why we don't have free public colleges in this country is because that would actually hurt military recruitment. They don't want you to know this, but I know this. That's one of the benefits of joining the military, right? Is that the military, if you're coming out of college, they'll pay off your student loans to a certain point. There is a maximum amount there. So there's that. but also that if you go into the military and you can also later on take college courses, et cetera, the military will cover that as well. So that's one of the recruitment methods that they use, particularly when they're trying to recruit low income high school students in Black and brown neighborhoods. That's one of the methods that they use. It's the same thing with healthcare, by the way. It's not just the pharmaceutical companies that we have to fight. So I'm going to tell you the part that Bernie Sanders is also leaving out. If we were to give everyone universal health care in this country, that would also hurt the military recruitment process. This is another one of those things that oftentimes is not mentioned. That's another benefit that is offered by the military when they are trying to recruit those young kids. So as long as you are supporting, you're in favor of those war efforts abroad, as long as you're voting on legislation in such a way that allow those war efforts to continue, well, then you're part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem, which Bernie Sanders has done. When I supported Bernie when he ran for president, I never said he was perfect. I didn't have this show at that point in time, but I never said he was perfect. And I did criticize some things about his campaign, but I said there are some things that I think he needs to mention that he's leaving out, but that's intentional. That is very intentional. So people have to be very much aware of that. You can't sit up here and both sides, the Gaza situation, Bernie Sanders. So I just don't understand at this point in time, what good is it to keep Bernie Sanders in the Senate at this point in time? Dude's going to be almost 90, right? We're talking about what, 80%? He's getting up there. Why are all these people continuing to hold on to these congressional seats? And I feel that if Bernie Sanders really cared so much about the young people, as he says that he does, then he would take this moment and he would step aside and he would actually allow someone younger, someone a little bit more empowered and inspired to come into that seat. But Bernie Sanders isn't willing to do that. A lot of these senators and congressmen are not willing to do that. We watched Dianne Feinstein sat up there. Basically, she couldn't even communicate. She was basically on her deathbed at that point in time, and they still kept this woman in the seat. It makes absolutely no sense. They do not want the younger generation to get in because they don't want change. And Bernie Sanders doesn't want as much change as he claims, because if he wanted this change, like for real, then he wouldn't be supporting Joe Biden. He wouldn't be supporting someone who's a part of the establishment, someone who's taken millions of dollars from AIPAC. He would tell all of his supporters to get behind a third party or independent effort, and he would get behind that as well. And he would organize what's left of his base to do the same thing. But he doesn't really want real change. His job is to keep you in the Democratic Party. That's what Bernie Sanders does.
Further, we need to break our dependence on the regressive property tax in the funding of local schools. I am proud of my leadership role in defending Social Security and Medicare from those who would cut benefits for our seniors. No, we don't need to cut benefits. We need to expand them, and we can do that by demanding that the very wealthy start paying their fair share of taxes into the Social Security Trust Fund. I am proud of some of the innovative housing programs we've introduced over the years and the millions of housing dollars we've brought into the state. This includes the National Housing Trust Fund, a national program modeled after the Burlington Community Land Trust, now the Champlain Housing Trust, which puts federal funds to work to create safe, perpetually affordable housing. But that's not enough. We have a
Pause. Affordable housing is a scam. I have to call this out. I've interviewed a number of people on the show that have been a part of these affordable housing efforts. That's a scam. Affordable housing, affordable to who? A lot of times they'll call it affordable housing, but the average person that's working like a minimum wage job or just the average working class person can't even afford to either get in, or they can't get in because they don't meet that narrow income bracket that you have to be a part of in order to participate in the application process. So affordable housing is a scam. Let's stop saying we need more affordable housing or we're building more affordable housing. And let's start saying we need housing for everybody regardless. And this is something that if you go to some of these other countries, if you go to like Finland, for example, they don't have this issue because everybody has housing. These are things that can be done in this country. Don't listen to what a lot of the politicians are telling you when they tell you we don't have the money. We have watched them over the past, 2.5 years send billions of dollars to Ukraine. We have watched them send $3.8 billion a year to Israel before October 7th. The money is there. The money has always been there. But you have to understand that the capitalist class, more so the oligarchs that are really much in charge, they don't want that to happen. They don't want everyone to have a home. And the reason why they don't want that is because it doesn't support their financial interests. And those oligarchs are a part of companies and corporations that donate to the politicians that sit on the Hill. So Bernie Sanders talks a good game. I know I fell for this too when he was running. He talks a good game. But when the metal hits the road, Bernie Sanders is not willing to be more of a radical and say, no, we cannot continue to keep doing the same thing that we have been doing. It's time to break away from the two-party system. And it's time to move towards something that's actually going to benefit the people.
A major housing crisis today that must be addressed. No Vermonter should be paying 40 or 50% of his or her income to put a roof over their heads. And there's one other issue that I know is very much on the minds of Vermonters. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas, a terrorist organization, began the war in Gaza with a horrific attack on Israel that killed 1,200 innocent men, women, and children, and took more than 230 hostages, some of whom remain in captivity today. Israel had the absolute right to defend itself against this terrorist attack, but it did not and does not have the right to go to war against the entire Palestinian people, which is exactly what it is doing.
But that's exactly what they've been doing. And this is the part where Bernie Sanders, I don't know if I'm going to say disingenuous or just flat out not being honest. That is what they have been doing, whether it has been the West Bank, whether it has been Gaza, whether it has been, shooting at peaceful protesters when they were protesting for the right to return years ago, whether it has been removing people from their homes in the West Bank. This is what Israel has been doing all along. So Bernie Sanders is conveniently leaving out the history so that he can keep the seat that he has. And I have to ask this question: as old as Bernie Sanders is, why wouldn't you want to retire at this point in time? Because I'll be damned. If it was me, I would say, once I hit retirement age, that's it. That's a wrap. What was it? The Chappelle skit where it said, wrap it up. That's it. I'm out. Why do you still need to be there? And what do they have on Bernie Sanders? Do they have something on Bernie Sanders? Is that why he's forced to stay in this seat? I don't understand this. It does not make any sense to me. So to me, I just kind of feel like, listen to the way that he's framing even that issue.
34,000 Palestinians have already been killed and 77,000 have been wounded, 70% of whom are women and children.
But notice how he doesn't call that horrific. He had called the assault on the 1,200 Israeli people horrific attack, but he's not calling the assault on the Palestinian people, which is over 40,000. I would say it's probably over 50,000. Okay, because all the people from the rubble have not been recovered. I would say it's probably over 50,000. That number is way higher. The Palestinian people are not in charge. They do not have an army, but he's not willing to call that horrific. So do you see what Bernie is doing? He's making you think that he supports the Palestinian people having some type of self-determination, and he's upset about what's happening to them. But don't get it twisted. Bernie Sanders is still pro-Israel. That's right, folks. Some people won't say it. I'll say it.
According to humanitarian organizations, famine and starvation are now imminent. In my view, U.S. tax dollars should not be going to the extremist Netanyahu government to continue its devastating war against the Palestinian people.
Notice how he frames that. It should not go towards the Netanyahu government. Instead of, it should not go to Israel, period. We should not be funding Israel, period.
Let me conclude by telling you what you already know. These are very difficult times for our country and the world. And in many ways, this 2024 election is the most consequential election in our lifetimes.
This man has said this going all the way back to 2016, as far as I can remember. Hillary Clinton, it was most important election. 2016, 2020, most important election. 2024, most important election. Same playbook.
Will the United States continue to even function as a democracy? Or will we move to an authoritarian form of government? Will we reverse the unprecedented level of income and wealth inequality that now exists? Or will we continue to see billionaires get richer while working families struggle to put food on the table?
That's happening under Joe Biden as well. You know, this is not something that is unique to the Republican Party because both parties are corporate. This is happening under Joe Biden as well.
Can we create a government that works for all of us?
No, not as long as you continue to tell people to support and endorse the establishment candidate. So let me say something really quick here, folks, before I forget, because I almost forgot last time. Let me say something here really quick. Bernie Sanders is there to continue to get the younger voters to support the Democratic Party. That is his role. That's why he's there. He's there to get you excited about the possibility of more progressive ideas and policies in this country, which I do believe Bernie Sanders does believe in those ideas. He's been talking about those for decades, right? But at the same time, Bernie Sanders also knows that he's not going to win for any type of presidential election. He knew that when he ran in 2020. I would argue that he knew that the Democratic Party was not going to let him have this. So what is Bernie Sanders' role? His role is to get the youth vote to come out and support the Democratic Party. And I believe part of the reason why he's running for re-election for U.S. Senate is because he is going to be used as a tool of the Biden administration to go out and round up those young voters that Joe Biden has lost because of his behavior towards Gaza. He's going to round up those people and try to get them to come out and support Joe Biden. And he's going to use it using the same language that he just said today. Do you want an authoritarian government? Do you want to protect democracy? Not realizing these young folks aren't thinking about no damn democracy. They're thinking about what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza. They're thinking about the economy. These are things that are on their mind right now. That is Bernie Sanders' role. That's why he's staying there. That's why he's running for re-election. That's why. Because there's no one else. They need him because he has a bigger name recognition. There's AOC as well, but Bernie Sanders has large name recognition. He's the one that was able to get hundreds of thousands of people at rallies. Joe Biden did not. So they are going to use him, get him to stay in that seat so that they can get him to go out and rile up the young base again.
Will our political system continue to be dominated by wealthy campaign contributors? These are just some of the questions that together we need to answer and that I look forward to discussing with you on the campaign trail. Once again, thank you very much for the support that many of you have given me in the past. As I enter this campaign, I look forward to your continued support.
Another independent needs to challenge Bernie Sanders in Vermont. Another independent or third party candidate needs to challenge him. Bernie's days are done. It's time for Bernie to go. Time for Bernie to go. If you have not had a chance to do so, folks, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And let's go to some of the comments, folks. All right. Cynical says, damn, I was hoping he was retiring. Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that. Ashura says, let him go. Thank you for the super chat. Janice, only try lip color after it's been sanitized. You can get herpes, ringworm, or other skin conditions from unsanitary cosmetic products. This is true. Also, don't put it on your lip. Like, don't pick up the lipstick in the store and put it on your lip. Like, they have little swabs that you can use to dip it around and use that, but don't do that. I saw a girl do that one time and I was like, are you crazy? Hey, put that back. Baby Ethernet says the chat on Twitter Spaces is also janky. We can talk about that tonight, you guys. We'll talk about it on the call-in. Thank you, Mad Matt, for the super chat. Love your show. Appreciate your insights. DJ Vlad is a cuck. I agree with you. Thank you. Kelly Gorger says, this country is ran by a bunch of geriatrics. DC is an old folks capital. Mm-hmm. The Oracle says he is a spineless sheepdog and shill. Odd Waz, I would have to agree, harmful. He's been totally compromised since 2016 DNC as far as I'm concerned. George says, what is up, George? Peace and honor, Sabby Sabs from Huntsville, Alabama. What is up? So my best friend from middle school actually moved to Huntsville, Alabama from the DC area, I think about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. She moved her family down there and everything. I was like, Alabama, Keisha? And she said, yeah, girl, it's Huntsville. Huntsville's different. And I was like, oh, no. But yeah, apparently that is like a happening place to be in Alabama. Shout out to Tony says, as a veteran, my politicians lied to us about Iraq. Yes, they did. Thank you, Stu. If you look at the countries with the highest rates of home ownership, nearly all the top countries on that list are former Soviet countries. Interesting, Stu. Zaldivar, Sabby, they have something on Bernie's wife who was allegedly misappropriating funds. I did hear about that. Thank you, Willis. Because a lot of Jewish people are we're going to change this, because a lot of Zionists are very selfish and pro-victims. Interesting, Willis. Thank you, Punish Media. Ooh, that's an interesting name. Bernie is being forced to continue because the DNC knows that incumbents tend to win re-election. They don't want to risk the seat. That's another good point there. Thank you so much. Let's go to the comment on Rockfin. It's the rock to the fin. It's the rock to the fin. Rock to the fin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Geography Pro. Update for Libertarian Convention. RFK Jr. confirmed today on Twitter that he will speak at the Libertarian Convention. Interesting. He also used this announcement to challenge Trump to a debate, claiming the LP convention is neutral ground and perfect for a debate. Half the LP presidential candidates responded and would be pissed if a debate happened between these two, and there being no LP candidate to debate at their convention. Yeah, isn't Lars Mapstead is running for president through the Libertarian Party, and I just found out that Larry Sharp is his running mate, so that would be interesting. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Sab, you forgot the most important thing, war, which he votes for, biggest contributor to climate change. But like I always say, the most dangerous politician is the one who does right by direct constituents, but terrible for the rest of the state if state lawmaker or country, if federal lawmaker. Because satisfied constituents are willing to look the other way, which is maybe why we must embrace direct democracy in government and economy, via CBI/WC. That's right. Well said. All right. And thank you, Flower Bro. Republican crats put Israel first and America last. Just got my Sabby Sabs mugs. Thank you. And I hope you like the mug. Mugging time. Okay. This next story, this has probably been one of the more heated stories over the past couple of days. We're going to walk through the timeline of what has happened in reference to Israel and Gaza. So let's start with the press. If you have not heard, Israel decided to close Al Jazeera offices in Israel. So this is Israel shutting down the information, right? They're shutting down the source of information that has actually been presenting a lot of the video footage that we've seen in Gaza. Al Jazeera's been responsible for a lot of that coverage. Now, why would they do that? We're going to get into that in just a second, but let's chime in here. Al Jazeera's office rated as Israel takes the channel off the air. So yes, folks, it actually happened. I had a feeling it was coming to this. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the cabinet agreed to the closure while the war in Gaza is ongoing. So do you see this? Israel's government has moved to shut down the operations of Al Jazeera television network in the country, branding it a mouthpiece for Hamas, because Al Jazeera has been showing Israel's crimes. They've shown Israel's war crimes on video. They've shown Israel killing all these children in Gaza. So one of the reasons why Israel killed over 100 journalists is because they were trying to shut down the source of information. Part of the reason why, or the main reason why, politicians and the ADL was trying to shut down TikTok is because, once again, they're trying to shut down the source of information so that people won't know what's happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza. So this is very dangerous. This is a free press issue. And for all of you who support Julian Assange, and I say this wholeheartedly, for all of you who support Julian Assange, how can you be for this? This is exactly what Julian Assange was trying to warn people about. It goes on to say here, police raided the Qatari broadcaster's office at the Ambassador Hotel in Jerusalem on Sunday. Al Jazeera called claims it was a threat to Israeli security a dangerous and ridiculous lie. The channel said it reserved the right to pursue every legal step. So let's go ahead and get into that here. So here are Israeli forces storming into Al Jazeera's Jerusalem office. We actually do have video footage of that.
What's your name? I've several times in the past year.
כן. רגע. אנחנו בחדר במלון, זה החדר, יש פה מחשב.
So you can see the camera equipment set up here, monitors. And I got to say, where are all the free speech advocates? Where are you guys? Where's Marjorie Taylor Greene? Where's Jim Jordan? They're out there simping for Israel. So you see, you can't say I'm pro free speech in reference to Ukraine. But when it comes to Israel, all of a sudden, no, shut it down. We're starting to see who's really pro free speech and who isn't. We're really starting to see that.
יש פה מצלמה, תאורה, עזרי תאורה, יש פה שולחן, יש פה מים. זהו.
Shutting down the press.
יש לנו גם מערכת שמשקפת את המראה החיצונית עם ציון ומארזים חיצוניים אמריקנים.
Yeah, controlling the source of information there. You know, I mean, like, how low can you go here? Now, this also leads into, the State Department. How does the State Department feel about what Israel has done in reference to Al Jazeera? So I want you to hear from Matthew Miller. He was asked this question about, again, of course, Israel shutting down Al Jazeera, which, by the way, international network. I think you would have to be blind if you watch independent media or any type of foreign policy media and you're not familiar with Al Jazeera. So they're trying to shut it down. Listen to what the State Department said about that.
Don't have any opening comments, so Matt, I think I imagine what your first question is going to be. So,
actually,
go ahead.
You know what? I'm going to surprise you because I don't want. Before we get into the long back and forth about Rafah and the ceasefire, I want to ask you if you can just answer this simply and straight about the Israeli closure of Al Jazeera. What is your response?
So we have seen the announcement from the government of Israel about closing Al Jazeera. We have made quite clear that we support media freedom all around the world, including in Israel, and that we are quite concerned about this action.
So here's the hypocrisy, right? They're always either concerned or we have spoken to Netanyahu or we have made our position known. You know, these common phrases that the State Department gives in reference to this particular conflict here. But if what Matthew Miller is saying, if that's true, then why is Julian Assange still in prison? Julian Assange till this day has not been charged with the crime. Just want to make that very clear. If they care about press freedom and press all across the world, why is Julian Assange still in prison?
You're quite concerned about this action? Are you asking the Israelis to do anything?
So as the president said on May 3rd, journalists and media workers are an essential part of any democracy because informed dissent is critical to building stronger and more successful societies. And we will continue to support and advocate for free and independent media around the world. We think Al Jazeera ought to be able to operate in Israel as they operate in other countries in the region.
So you oppose?
We do.
You oppose?
We do.
Okay. All right.
So they oppose it, but they're not going to do anything about it. You see, you oppose it, but you're still giving them money. You oppose it, but you're still giving them weapons. You're still giving Israel supplies and things that they're asking for, but you oppose it, right? You're shutting down TikTok, trying to shut down TikTok because there's a narrative on there that Israel has a problem with, that the ADL has a problem with, that AIPAC has a problem with. You can't sit up here and say that you believe in a free press. You believe in narrative control. Now, what is really interesting, after Israel shut down Al Jazeera in Jerusalem, Hamas agreed to a ceasefire. The ceasefire agreement was between Egypt and Qatar. Check this out.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Straight to the breaking news. Hamas says it agrees to a ceasefire with Israel. However, Israel has not yet committed to the deal. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to President Biden earlier today as Israel has already begun dropping flyers into the southern Gaza city of Rafah, urging more than 1 million people sheltering there to get out.
So you see what was happening? So they were dropping the flyers. This is what they do. They drop these flyers to tell them to leave. Where are they supposed to go to? Remember, Rafah is the last place that they're allowed to be. That's supposed to be a safe zone. After Rafah is Egypt. So there's a big wall there that borders Rafah and Egypt. They can't go into Egypt. So where are those people supposed to go to? And by the way, Israel has already been, once again, check Max Blumenthal Twitter account. I can't show it on here, but check his Twitter account. Israel is already killing children again. You can see the pictures, all the images all over social media, but I can't show them on here. But they're already doing that again. So this was actually Hamas taking the upper hand. They were getting out in front of a situation because ceasefire proposal from Egypt, which Egypt is aligned with the United States, and Hamas accepts the ceasefire. That puts the ball back in Israel's court, because if Israel refuses to accept the ceasefire, again, part of this deal was to get the hostages. It shows you that once again, Israel really didn't care about getting those hostages back. Because if that was your top concern, you would have accepted the ceasefire so you can get the people back. But that's not their top concern.
Thousands of Palestinians now leaving the area as the IDF appears to inch closer to an invasion of that city. For more, let's bring in our foreign correspondent, Marcus Moore. He's in Tel Aviv, along with our national security analyst, Mick Mulroy. So, Marcus, what more do we know about this ceasefire deal?
Well, Kira, we know that the Hamas has come out with this statement just a short time ago saying that they have accepted this agreement or this deal, but what we don't know at this point are the details, and specifically what part of the deal have they accepted. Because if you'll recall, the proposal that was on the table included a number of phases, and so at this point it's unclear specifically what they have agreed to. But Kira, this is potentially a very encouraging sign, considering that the day started out with the feeling or the thought that any of the negotiations that had been underway and that seemed promising at the end of last week, at the start of today, it seemed that they were back at square one in some sense, and that there was a long road ahead. And it is important to point out that, again, we are hearing from Hamas, a top official from Hamas, but we have not yet heard a reaction or any update from the Israelis or the Qataris, who have been playing a key role as mediators in this, and Kira, the Egyptians. We have not yet heard from them or U.S. officials. But if indeed there is an agreement, this is a hugely encouraging sign, Kira, for not only all of the families who are suffering in the midst of the fighting, but also the loved ones of those who are waiting for the hostages to be released and for them to be reunited with their families, Kira.
But no, those hostages have not been reunited with their families because Israel did not agree to that ceasefire deal. Again, the ball was put back in their court, but they didn't agree to it. Now in Gaza, people started celebrating. They felt the same way that he did. And you can see people celebrating in the streets. They thought, oh, yes, this is an encouraging sign. Yeah, so they were pretty excited about that. And then there was this response from Israel. So it says that Israel is finally reacting to that ceasefire exchange.
So a lot in there. We know that they are celebrating in Gaza, but it seems that it is premature. It seems that it is too early to start celebrating. Yeah. Hamas a short while ago said that it had agreed to a ceasefire deal, that it agreed to a deal that it has been working on with mediators from Qatar, Egypt. This was a deal that was backed by the United States. But it didn't spell out exactly what the terms of the deal would be. Some of those terms are understood because they have been talked about in public forums before. Some of the terms, however, are not exactly clear.
Let's just pause here for a second. I'm going to fast forward through this part. So he said that some of those terms are not exactly clear. I think what that kind of means is that in reference to Israel, Israel feels those terms are not clear. I'm pretty sure they're very clear to Hamas.
Exchange for a 40-day ceasefire, 40-day cessation of hostilities, and that if that went well, there would be other phases to follow. There are nearly 130 hostages believed to be still in Gaza, and 93 of them still alive, the others having died during captivity. The issue is Israel has not confirmed that those are the terms of a deal that it is willing to accept.
So you hear that? They were not willing to accept that deal, which is exactly what I predicted would happen. So when I saw people, get excited about this, I was just kind of like, well, we have to see if Israel accepts it first.
These deals, these negotiations are being carried out in secret. There are not written documents that are exchanged, at least that we are aware of, or written documents that are published publicly. So we're seeing Hamas saying that it has accepted a version of the deal that the two sides were working on. But Israel, according to unnamed still Israeli officials, saying that this is a ruse, this is a pressure tactic, this is a way to make Israel look like it is the one rejecting the deal instead of Hamas.
But that's what has happened. And that's exactly, so Israel basically played into Hamas' hands, I would speak. So the world already has a negative view about Israel right now. And I say the world, not just the United States, because of what has taken place in Gaza, but not just Gaza, also the West Bank. But now even people who may have been on the fence, which I don't understand how you could still be on the fence at this point, but people who may have been on the fence about this particular conflict here, Now, even they're starting to give a side eye to Israel because they said, wait a minute now. Now, you said you had the right to defend yourself and you were going to go in and get those hostages back. Now, they have agreed to a ceasefire deal to give you the hostages back, and you choose not to do that. In fact, not only did they not choose, they chose not to accept it, but the IDF went into Gaza. The IDF went into Gaza. It says the Israeli army took the time to destroy the I Love Gaza sign and remove all Palestinian flags across the Egyptian border. And we'll start with this clip here. We're just going to pause the music. So you can see here, they just basically rode right over the sign. Okay. So somebody explain this to me. Excuse me. How is this defending yourself? A sign is not Hamas. So how is that defending yourself? That's them destroying what's left of the land. That doesn't make any sense. So you can see here it says the Israeli army closed and destroyed Rafah crossing. So that's that there. And then we go over here and you'll see what it looked like previously and what it looks like now. So they basically are already demolishing whatever they can, right? Sorry, I was muted. I want to show you that border so you can see what's going on. The IDF now controls the entire Philadelphia axis along the Gazan/Egyptian border in a breach of the 1979 Camp David Accords. So if we look at the picture here, here's the Philadelphia corridor, this red line. And then you'll see the white line here over to the right. This is the Karm Abu Salem crossing. It goes all the way up that way. And then you'll see here's Rafah, this green line here in the middle. This is Rafah crossing. So as you can see, when they're telling the Palestinian people to evacuate, there's nowhere for them to go. Rafah is the southernmost point here in Gaza. And next door to Rafah is Egypt. And obviously they can't go into Egypt. I think this is also a tactic to put more pressure on Egypt to open up that border and to let the Palestinians in. I really do feel like Israel is also trying to put pressure on Egypt for that to happen. And I'll tell you this, if that does happen, once Egypt were to do that and let them come in, I don't think those people would ever be allowed to come back to Gaza again. And then Israel will capture the land, which is what they wanted. This is what Netanyahu discussed in front of a panel of people. So how does the U.S., State Department feel about the IDF entering Rafah? This raid here. So listen to John Kirby.
We've made clear our views about operations in Rafah that could potentially put more than 1 million innocent people at greater risk. During his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president again made this clear. He also made clear that we continue to believe that the hostage deal is the best way to avoid that sort of an outcome while securing the release of those hostages. And as I said, those conversations continue.
So let me tell you why John Kirby and the Biden administration is full of it, okay? So if they do not agree with the IDF entering Rafah and this ground, invasion that they're doing right now, why did you give them the weapons and the tools to do so? Why hasn't the Biden administration called for a permanent ceasefire? Why are there, senators right now like Chuck Schumer trying to get Netanyahu a visit in person in Congress? So we cannot allow ourselves to be deceived. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Israel is doing what the Biden administration is letting them do. They are getting away with it because the Biden administration isn't trying to stop them from getting away with it. They don't have to give them weapons. They don't have to give them aid. And they can call for a ceasefire if they really wanted this to stop. So disagreeing with Israel entering Rafah and seeing it happen right before your eyes, and you're not willing to denounce it. Those are two different things. So we can't be fooled by the lies of John Kirby as well. And I want to point something out to you. Matthew Miller, again, from the State Department. I want you to pay attention to something that Matthew Miller said in reference to this invasion in Rafah that is very revealing, because he's going to show you that the U.S. government actually does admit, and they actually do know, that Israel is committing a genocide. He lets the cat out the bag himself. Pay attention to his words.
We've made quite clear our position on Rafah for some time, which is that we cannot support an operation in Rafah as it is currently envisioned. We have made clear, the Secretary made this clear in his conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu and other members of the Israeli government last week, that we have not seen a humanitarian plan that is credible and that is implementable. And we believe a military operation in Rafah right now would dramatically increase the suffering of the Palestinian people, would lead.
Pause. Let's go back to this part right here. This is very much, this is exposed. He exposes what they have always known, what we've been saying all along. Pay attention to the humanitarian aid.
And that is implementable. And we believe a military operation in Rafah.
Sorry, let me go back just a little bit more here. There we go.
And other members of the Israeli government last week, that we have not seen a humanitarian plan that is credible and that is implementable. And we
pause. Let's just pause on that part right there. So here's the State Department admitting to you that till this day, they have not seen a humanitarian plan that is feasible and that has been implemented. In other words, they know that the Israeli government are trying to starve the Palestinian people. Isn't that what we've been saying all along? So when Joe Biden tells you that he's going to build this pier to get the aid in, easier, that was theater. When Joe Biden told you that Israel assured us they're doing everything they can to get the humanitarian aid in, again, that was a lie and theater. So I'm not the one on the stage at the State Department admitting this. This is the State Department saying the quiet part out loud, which means they have known all this time that Israel was starving those people. If he tells you that they have not seen any type of humanitarian aid plan implemented till this day, then all this time they knew that Israel was starving the Palestinian people. He goes on to expose more about himself.
We believe a military operation in Rafah right now would dramatically increase the suffering of the Palestinian people, would lead.
Military operation in Rafah right now will increase the suffering of the Palestinian people. So they are admitting to you that they know that the Palestinian people are suffering.
To an increase in loss of civilian life, would dramatically disrupt the delivery of humanitarian assistance, all of which is coming through, I shouldn't say all, but the great majority of which is coming through Kerem Shalom or Rafah and is being distributed inside the Rafah area. If you think about what it would do when you have people moving north to places where internal distribution lines are not currently set up, and you're going to have to try to reestablish those in the middle of conflict in Rafah, we think that'd be very difficult, if not impossible to do. So even absent this latest response, we have made clear that we do not support Israel launching a full-scale military operation in Rafah.
If you are giving them weapons, you do support it. Let's go back here when he talks about the loss of civilian life.
Would dramatically disrupt the delivery of humanitarian assistance, all of which is coming through, I shouldn't say all, but the great majority of which is coming through Kerem Shalom or Rafah and is being distributed inside the Rafah area. If you think about what it would do when you have people moving north to places where internal distribution lines are not currently set up, and you're going to have to try to reestablish those in the middle of conflict in Rafah, we think that'd be.
So he admits to you that the areas where they're telling the Palestinians to move to in Rafah do not have humanitarian aid set up. So again, another step to starve those people.
Very difficult, if not impossible to do. So even absent this latest response, we have made clear that we do not support Israel launching a full-scale military operation in Rafah.
But you do support it because you were giving them the weapons to do so. If I give you, the keys to my car and I'm out of town, I said, here's the keys to my car, but don't drive the car. If I give you a large pepperoni pizza and I say, here's a large pepperoni pizza, but don't eat the pizza. Our government is full of it. They really are full of it. And it gets worse. Check this out. So Cynthia McKinney shared this. This letter is wild. Look at this crazy, unseemly, sycophantic, truly cowardly behavior from the supposed U.S. Congress. If you hurt Israel, we will hurt you. Signed, U.S. Republican senators threatened the ICJ in a letter to the chief prosecutor. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this letter is kind of making its way around. Obviously, I can't zoom in here, but I have read the letter. But the part there that's highlighted at the bottom, and these are a lot of the senators, the money that they're taking from AIPAC, right? All the ones that signed this letter, they're all taking money from AIPAC. So if these are your representatives, you need to know, again, they're not representing you. I don't care what political ideology you are. If these are your representatives, they are not representing you. They are representing Israel's interests first. You see where their money coming from, right? You see where they're getting those checks. Who's supporting them from AIPAC? But that is exactly what it said at the bottom of the letter, which I did read that. It says, if you hurt Israel, we will hurt you. So you have senators actually threatening the international courts. I mean, what is this? Is this The Godfather Part 4? This is a mafia style. What is happening here? And they signed their names to it. So if these are your representatives, if you live in their districts, we're talking about Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell. If these are your representatives, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, Ted Budd, Rick Scott, Tim Scott. Oh, look, it's the Rick Scott that everyone thought was going to be so much better. Bill Haggerty, Katie Britt, Pete Ricketts, Marsha Blackburn. If these are your representatives, your senators, you need to know they do not represent you at this point in time. They're not even willing to allow the international court to do their job. And I feel like I'm watching like an episode of Empire or some crime show where people are threatening the chief prosecutor, threatening the judge. What's next? You're going to try to slip some money under the table? So don't come to me and talk about authoritarianism. Don't come to me and talk about protecting democracy when you see that all these people are bought and paid for. Anytime they are willing to threaten the international court like that, that's not no damn democracy. That's a mafia. But the people aren't giving up. The people are not giving up. In fact, you're going to see this here in Colorado. People made their voices heard. We joined our friends at Jewish Voices for Peace Colorado to let Representative Nagus know that we demand a permanent ceasefire. So he was not expecting this, but he got an earful.
And I started. I am here as your constituent, and I'm so glad you are home because I'm here with Jewish Voices for Peace, and we are here to ask you today for call for a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire in Gaza. As you know, 34,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel with our funds and our weapons.
It's okay. I'm happy to talk with you after the event. I'll spend some time to visit with you.
You are breaking U.S. law by sending weapons to Israel.
Talk to him later.
Happy to talk to you at the conclusion.
You are breaking section.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
All right. The most significant infrastructure.
So you see, they want to vote in such a way. They want to make these votes, but then they don't want to answer to them. We'll talk to you later. Pay attention to people in the room, right? A lot of the people in the room are older people, right? And someone calls that out. Listen to this.
Legislation enacted since the days of Dwight Eisenhower.
Elect those two senators, and you are wrong. The young people are not with you. Look at this room. You know what the young people are worried about is when our Democrats.
Look at the room. And this is what I've been saying before. Look at the room. Most of the people, again, who are they speaking to, ladies and gentlemen? They're not speaking to, and then they wonder why they're losing young voters. They wonder why they're losing support from the young community. They wonder why they've lost a lot of our support and votes. They don't speak to us. They ain't speaking to none of us. Is this a town hall meeting with your representative? This looked like a hangout that my grandma would have gone to. What is happening? Is it bingo night? Who are they talking to? All of them are doing it. And this woman here, she's correct to stand up and say this. When she says, look at the room.
Elect those two senators, and you are wrong. The young people are not with you. Look at this room. You know what the young people are worried about is when are Democrats going to stop funding the killing and starvation of children? When are Democrats going to stop funding the killing and starvation of children? When are Democrats going to stop the killing and starvation of children?
And you know what's sad? Because you can look at some of the people in this room and I wonder, what were their lives like when they were younger? You know, I wonder, did any of them protest against any of these wars? Let's say the Vietnam War. Did any of them ever, fight for anything in the streets? Because sometimes when people get older, sometimes they forget. So I wonder about that. And then what happened? Did they just fall asleep? One day you just gave up and you just stopped fighting?
That's okay. It's all right. It's all right. I'll keep it brief. Unless anybody else is planning.
I'm going to go up because you are complicit in genocide. 15,000 children dead. We are all complicit because our tax dollars are funding this genocide. We cannot allow this. Shame on all of you. Shame on the Democrats. You think you're better than everybody. You're killers.
She called it what it was, right? She said that they were killers. People still not giving up. Still not giving up. New York City, let's bring it on over. We're talking about what happened outside of the Met. After circling the Met for around 2 hours, pro-Palestine protesters in New York City are now marching south on Park Avenue. I think it says here, it says protesters got within a block of the Met on several occasions before running into police barricades. Check this out. Look at all the people.
Palestine is not your land. Genocide is your land.
Notice they're chanting no justice, no peace. So what is the difference between Biden's presidency and Trump's presidency when it comes to the protests? Weren't a lot of us just out in the streets a couple of years ago protesting during the George Floyd protests, saying no justice, no peace? Now that was under Donald Trump. That was under a Republican, who everyone's calling authoritarian and racist and sexist and all that stuff. Now you have people in the streets under Joe Biden, who they said was going to heal the soul of the country. Does the soul look healed to you, Joe? Because it doesn't look healed to me. People in the streets saying the same thing. No justice, no peace. All right. So that was New York. And then I thought this was pretty interesting, too. Protesters did arrive outside the Met Gala. So, yes, once again, that extravagant event that takes place in New York with artists and musicians, et cetera. And they put on these expensive dresses that I think are just overpriced. And it's just basically a place for you to show up and say, hey, I'm rich. I'm here. Yeah. They made it there. Shout out to Fiorella Isabel for this. Protesters are outside the Met Gala in NYC. Some broke through the barriers. Reminder, You can glam up a pile of shit and put perfume on it, but it's not going to change. And you'll see some of this here. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but they really went in. So I want to be very clear. The cops are here to protect the rich people that are inside the Met Gala. Like I said before, they protect property and they protect wealth, right? So if you're rich, the cops are going to look out for you for the most part. That's who they're there to protect. The protesters are there to make the people inside the Met Gala wake up. Now, let's go back. Wasn't it just a year or two ago that there were protesters protesting against the police while AOC was inside that Met Gala showing off her tax the rich dress? How much has actually changed? Not much. We'll show a little bit more here. And this is what they like to do, Stan, because you notice, like, you don't see too many of these cops running. When I see a cop running, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a cop running. And usually, you know, they're not running fast. A lot of them spend more time at Dunkin' Donuts. You know, they spend a lot of time sitting down eating those donuts. I used to live right across the street from a Dunkin' Donuts. When I lived in Cambridge, there was a Dunkin' Donuts there and there was a little convenience store and the Dunkin' Donuts was kind of attached. And who did I see going to Dunkin' Donuts all the time? It was the cops. That's where they spend a lot of their time, sitting at Dunkin' Donuts, eating those donuts, getting their coffee, you know, doing the damn thing. That's why they can't run fast. I'm keeping it real. So as you can see here, they start to block it off now here, but a lot of them obviously already got through, right? So yeah. But I just want to say that I think that, you know, again, you guys know how I feel about the police. I don't mess with the police. I don't like the police. I think police are a waste of time. They only solve 0.02% of crime. I don't remember police preventing crime, you know, this type of thing. And they're basically there to try to terrorize and bully people who are a lot of times are not being violent. But when it comes down to when you need the cops, you need to call them and say, I need you to solve this crime. Or when you contact the cops and you say to them, hey, there's a serial killer on the loose. They're not good for those things. They're just not. They're there to push their weight around on people who are obviously, you know, a lot of times not in a violent situation. It's a street. It's a public space. And I say it like this. No, you know, you don't get to protect the rich. The rich need to wake up and see what's happening with the rest of the world. You'll see that when we get into this story here with Kendrick and DJ Vlad, and it gets into the Macklemore issue as well, is that the rich people need to wake up and actually care for once about what's happening to the rest of the world. And if that were to happen, Israel would not be allowed to do what they're doing in Gaza because we wouldn't have an AIPAC. We wouldn't have these organizations that were paying off these politicians to do their interest, to do their bidding. We wouldn't have it. But that was the timeline of the events there. They closed Al Jazeera, Hamas accepted the ceasefire, and Israel went into Rafah and attacked anyway. And based on the information I read, I can't show the videos on here because they're very graphic. But based on what I've seen, the videos and the information I read, they're also attacking tents in Rafah. There are children that they have killed again. So this idea that Israel can do whatever they want and there's no accountability, and the fact that you have these mega donors, billionaires attached to these corporations that buy these politicians, this is why Israel has been able to do whatever they want. Let's go to some of the comments here. Yeah, Sam said the images are horrific. They are. They are. If you follow Max Blumenthal has posted some videos. You follow him on Twitter. You'll see some of them. It's really sad, especially like the children. I just, and these people have no care. And to sit up there and see people on Twitter like celebrating that, people are sick. People are really sick. Thank you, Maria. Chase Oliver for Libertarian 2024, hashtag Bernie busted. He was part of that debate that I covered as well. Thank you, Tony D. Mitt Romney just told media we are banning TikTok because civilians learn too much. And yeah, they say these things out in the open. Out in the open. Sinai says, why are they confiscating the equipment? To take what's left, probably to go through the hard drives to see what's on there and get rid of it. I don't know, Thank you for this as well, Tony. I am curious, Sabby, your opinion of Reverend Al on MSNBC. Protesters are violent. Reverend Al Sharpton needs to go sit down somewhere because, and I don't want to hear about you marching in the streets and protesting Reverend Al Sharpton. I don't even want to hear about it because you sold out for the bag. Sold out for the bag. People need to start asking themselves, all these revolutionaries that are no longer here because whether it was the FBI, CIA, or whatever killed them, you need to ask yourself why Al Sharpton is still here. Because he sold out and got the bag. Thank you, David. Bombing after ceasefire deal equals bad faith on Israel. Yes, it does. Thank you, 72 Marshflower. Zionism is anti-American as it puts Israel above and before the U.S. Being against Palestine is anti-Semitic. It goes both ways. Well, Palestinians are Semites, right? Thank you, Roger. Don't worry. I won't eat. I hate pepperoni. What? Is that's a Pikachu what moment? You hate pepperoni? Damn. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for you. Thank you, Willis. Racism, white supremacy take both sides of a war. Thank you, Flower Bro. The encampment at SFSU and USF are on day 8. Up Berkeley has had violent Zionists showing up armed to intimidate the students. Disclose, divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. Yeah, buddy. Also, a lot of the public universities really aren't being as covered as much in mainstream media, but they've been holding fairly strong. Thank you, Jojo. When you realize that the price of an outfit for the Met Gala could have helped pay Egypt's ransom to get a Palestinian family out of Gaza, it's sickening. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Fat Man TV. Asking the rich to care is a tall order, but yeah, I know. All right. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button, guys. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving into something a little bit different, but I promise I have a point. And I think, Eric, we're picking up on the Okay, yeah, we're picking up on the second part there. Okay, I was just double checking where we're picking up at. All right. So something else happened over the weekend. If you missed this, I'm going to inform you now. Kendrick Lamar and Drake actually had a diss battle back and forth all weekend. And I was just saying to myself, like, slow down. I can't keep up. Every time I was turning around, there was another diss track. I'm like, stop. I can't keep up with all these diss tracks. You know, like I'm trying to watch movie and someone texts me and says, Kendrick just dropped another one. Drake just dropped a response. And it was like back and back, right? Back and forth. But the reason why I want to have this conversation is because it also leads to something with DJ Vlad. And then we'll get to Macklemore in the end when we're focusing on what should have been the focus. And I want to get to that point as well. But first, let's start with this rap battle that happened between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Love him, hate him, don't know. Who's your fave? Who do you think is better? But it always, you know, it was very interesting enough to make mainstream news. Listen to this.
Welcome back to ABC News Live First. It's the rap beef that keeps going back to back. Drake and Kendrick Lamar are trending after taking aim at one another over the weekend in 5 different songs, one of them dropping overnight.
Your fans are rejoicing. We have to skip this part. And I know someone said Kendrick may have released like the copyright thing, but I just don't know for sure. So.
Now, Drake's latest record, The Heart Part 6, already has 8 million plays on YouTube and is a direct response to Kendrick's Not Like Us song. I want to bring in Anscape senior culture writer and author of It Was All a Dream, Biggie and the World That Made Him, Justin Tinsley, to break it all down for us. Justin, thanks for coming on. There's a lot to go through here in a short period of time, but let's talk about the timelines this weekend because this was all over the place. So can you take us back to what led to all of this and how we ended up with 5 diss tracks in just 2 days?
Yeah, like if I tell you the whole story, we would need a 6-part documentary. But just in this current construct, let's go back to 2023 when Drake and J. Cole had the song, the mega hit, First Person Shooter, which Kendrick Lamar kind of took offense to about a big 3 and other lines within that song. That leads us to the song Like That, Future and Metro song on the We Don't Trust You album that came out a couple of months ago and eventually became the #1 song in the country for multiple weeks. Kendrick took direct aim at J. Cole, but definitely Drake in that record. Fast forward with a couple of responses from Drake a couple of weeks ago, and you get this weekend, which was unlike anything in hip-hop history, with a flurry of disses that just came from every direction, primarily from Kendrick Lamar.
And they were personal beefs. There was information apparently, you know, alleging to Drake being interested in underage girls. That was referenced throughout. There were accusations against Kendrick Lamar about him being a woman beater. Like it was personal. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm the better rapper, the better MC. It was not that kind of beef. It was more so like personal things, like you know, hit him high, hit him low. So it went there. I will say from my experience, and people used to get mad at me when I said this back then. I remember when Drake first became like popular, and I said it back then and I still stand by it today. I never thought Drake was a phenomenal rapper. Like I liked some of his songs. I still do like some of his songs till this day. But I mean, you got to understand, I grew up with Biggie and Tupac, Snoop, Cube. I grew up with that type of hip hop. So for me, that's what I compare everything to. So when I heard Drake, I was like, oh yeah, the songs are pretty catchy, but he's no Tupac. Okay. And people were out here in the streets talking about, oh, well, Drake, he's the best rapper ever alive. Hold up. Let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. So I grew up with that, you know, like the Nas and Eminem and stuff like that, where the lyrics actually meant something. My parents will say that they grew up with the type of hip hop that actually was more, you know, conscious rap. So they grew up with like Grandmaster Flash when they were talking about really important issues that were affecting the community at that point in time. So every generation has like their thing. But I knew about Drake because he was on a show called Degrassi. I don't know if everyone's seen that show, but that's where I know him from. But yeah, I never thought he was this phenomenal rapper. Does he have some trendy songs that I like to bounce to every now and then? Yes, but I never thought he was phenomenal. When I listen to Kendrick Lamar, I do feel like Kendrick Lamar, I feel like he's more of a lyricist. And that's what I look for when I listen to hip hop. Is one of the reasons why I like Tupac so much, because Tupac's songs actually told a story. You know, he had a song called Brenda Had a Baby. That's actually a really deep song if you listen to the lyrics. So for me, I would prefer the Kendrick Lamar style to the Drake style in reference to the lyrics and who's the lyricist.
Now, Kendrick Lamar doesn't usually give fans music like this back to back, but in Drake's latest song, he says Kendrick has 10 more songs. So do you think that means more diss tracks?
Oh, there's definitely more diss records in the tuck. Now, whether they actually come out, I'm not sure. But this is a tension that has been brewing for the better part of a decade. If you're familiar with Drake and Kendrick Lamar, hands down the two biggest rap stars of their generation and two of the biggest musicians of their generation. So he's been ready for a situation like this, and you can tell with the strategy, timing, and lyrical darts in his responses.
Okay. So what became more interesting about this, because there was also a pretty damning conversation on Twitter that was very revealing about DJ Vlad because of this diss, because of this beat. And I think that Kev on Stage actually summed it up in reference to how DJ Vlad chose to respond to the Kendrick Lamar song, Not Like Us. Like, I like that one. I thought that was the best one that I listened to so far. But this kind of sums it up, you know, DJ Vlad's response to what he said in reference to Kendrick Lamar's song. Listen to this.
You know, the mix. I just really don't like the mix on that song. I mean, you just two-track the SOB. You really screwed the pooch on that one, buddy. I mean, you got the whole world a listening, pal, and you don't take time to do the mix? I mean, I don't mind the lyrics, sure, you betcha. But the mix, I mean, where's the production quality? You know, Prince didn't do a great job on the mix sometimes, and look at the streams. Look at the difference in the streams on the mix. If K. Dot would have done a better job on the mix, I think he'd be up in the battle. But you know, the mix is important.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good way of summing up how DJ Vlad responded. Now, the reason why this conversation in particular is important is because apparently this discussion really exposed DJ Vlad. Now, some people already had their opinion about him, but DJ Vlad actually went full Karen to the point where he decided to threaten this woman's job. Like, I kid you not. So he responded and he said, Kendrick's Not Like Us needed a better mix. It takes away from the song. Okay, whatever. He's entitled to his opinion. Eric, go ahead and pull up part 2 for Tight VNC. He's entitled to his opinion. Whatever. I really don't care. I've never really been a fan of DJ Vlad, like, to be honest. And I've taken, like, you know, I had my own issues with, like, DJ Vlad. Eric, can we pull up part 2 of the Tight VNC? Thanks. Notori said DJ Vlad is a Fed. Okay. I don't know about that part, but this is funny. Kid, exactly. I don't know where. Okay, I don't know. Hold on one second. I'm trying to find. 1 second. Okay. I'm waiting on Eric to pull up part 2. Thank you. But I guess, like, my whole thing is like, I've never really been a fan of DJ Vlad, so to speak, but he did something that I thought was just yikes. Let me go up here. This woman here, so she was a professor at Princeton. So her name is Morgan Jerkins. So she responded to this, and not everybody agrees with the way that she responded, but I want to show you how this got worse. And I think that's the part that's pretty interesting. She said, "You are white. This is a black folk affair." So she was responding to what DJ Vlad said there about Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us need a better remix. Now, some people was like, yo, just he's entitled to give his opinion, whatever. But I think the thing is, even if you disagree with what she said, even if he disagreed, I think he took this to another level that was not cool. So he decides to chime in here and he says, wait, so a professor at Princeton is telling me that a white person shouldn't be allowed to voice their opinion about hip hop. Is that how you interact with your students? So I guess you guys can see where this is going. She chimed in here and said, what I'm saying is that you put your opinion in a discussion that's not needed. This conversation is and should center Black people, not you. And she went on to say here, and by the way, my students have more cultural competency than you. They actually know how to read the room. Okay. So he chimed in here, and this is where he decides to go full Karen. Don't try to change your words now. I'll be reaching out to Princeton about this on Monday. So here is a guy, DJ Vlad, white guy, who is known for having interviews with different hip hop artists. It's a really popular show. DJ Vlad, like Vlad TV, is really popular on YouTube. You can look it up and we'll talk about who he is in just a second. Hangs out with all the dudes and stuff, all the rappers and stuff. Now, all of a sudden, DJ Vlad realizes that he can use his privilege to threaten someone's job. So a lot of people were not happy about this because they said, wait, you're threatening this woman's job? And she's a Black woman, Morgan Jerkins. She goes on to say, the semester's over. My contract has been completed, but thanks for trying to bully me out of a job for centering Black people because you got your feelings hurt. Very retaliatory, huh? Nice tactic. He goes on to say, like, this just gets worse and worse. It's called a permanent record. Every university has one. I went to Berkeley myself. People spew ignorant and bigoted comments at you publicly and then act like they're getting bullied when they get a response. Typical victim mentality. Go ahead and take that Princeton out of your profile, sweetie. You just admitted it's not even true anymore. LOL. So he went to Berkeley. Berkeley is a pretty high-ranked school, by the way. University of California, Berkeley. Pretty high-ranked school. So she chimes in here and says, sweetheart, before I was a professor at Princeton, I graduated from Princeton. LOL. So what is you really saying? This is the part that really seals the ticket here, folks. Good luck being a professor at Princeton again. I doubt the university supports their faculty telling non-Black students to shut the fuck up about anything hip hop related because of their skin color. So you see how he was able to just turn like that, which is not even what I said. I find it funny that you specifically chose to respond to me, belittle my academic background, and threaten my job when others respond to you in a much harsher way. Very interesting and telling, but you got it. So this is oof. He decided to try to clear the air on Monday. Since it's Monday, let me clear the air and state that I never had any intention of filing a complaint to Princeton for former Professor Morgan Jerkins, saying that white people aren't allowed to comment on Kendrick Lamar's music. She trolled me and I trolled back. At the end of the day, it created an interesting discussion about race relations in America. I will be discussing it further in my future interviews. No, just don't. It's just like, just let it go. Might want to just let this one go. I don't know, dude. A lot of people turned on you yesterday. A lot of people in the comments were like, wow, I used to like this guy. What the hell happened to him? But people have been suspect about him for quite some time. Now, this is where things get interesting. She responded to his statement, a lie. He tagged my employer multiple times with the intention to professionally harm me. I didn't troll. I center Black people in discussion of hip hop and told him to stand down because it's not his space. He's backtracking because he miscalculated. By the way, stop contacting my family. So this is nutso. Like, this is going further than, it should have gone. Mark Lamont Hill actually chimed in reference to his response on Monday. Mark Lamont Hill said, no, Vlad, this doesn't clear the air. You're literally arguing that you were weaponizing your power and privilege to threaten a Black woman's job. And why? Because she criticized you on Twitter about your power and privilege? You could have disagreed with Morgan Jerkin's stance. I actually didn't object to you intervening in the conversation, even though I disagreed with your point, without threatening her. This is Karen shit. And yeah, like DJ Vlad went full Karen. And it just like that. So you see how that can change? The same guy who hangs out with rappers all the time and say he's cool and down with the bros and the homies. Just like that, he was able to go, whoop, full Karen, a full Chad. Just like that. It was not a good look, bruh. It was not a good look. And he also responded to Mark Lamont Hill. This is bad too. Oh, hey, I ratioed him here. I didn't realize that. Not Mark LaFlop Hill chiming in. Must have hit a nerve with all the jobs you've gotten fired from over the years. LOL. I responded down here and I said, this ain't it. No, like it's not like, Mark Lamont Hill was fired from CNN because he was standing up for the Palestinian people. This is not an own. This is not an own. Bad, bruh, bad. So Mark did respond to this as well. He said these types of responses are why people don't think you move in good faith. Instead of engaging the actual critique, you resort to name calling and misdirection. And yes, though not at all relevant, I've been fired twice. Both times it was for advocating for justice through my platforms. In contrast, you're using yours to try to get someone fired. Why double down instead of just saying I went too far in my response to a comment that I disliked? That's a really good point there from Mark Lamont Hill. Saying you got fired from how many jobs when he got fired because he was being principled in reference to, the Palestinian people, that's not an own. And I don't even know. But who is he? I think you need to know something about DJ Vlad. And we're going to transition this into what happened with Macklemore, because I think this is important. Who is DJ Vlad? Where did he come from all of a sudden? And why is he doing what he's doing? Let's get into this piece here.
Figures that excel in manufacturing chaos, few have the success rate of DJ Vlad. Active in the game for the better part of 2 decades, the Kyiv-born University of Berkeley graduate is a self-professed guest in the House of Hip Hop. Yet, despite a special clearance, Vlad TV helms one of its most recognizable content sources, split between welcoming new guests to his dimly lit headquarters and welcoming his controversially courting favorites back whenever possible.
So you guys may notice some of these thumbnails, right? You're probably looking at this and you're like, oh, I think I may have seen this on YouTube before. Yeah, so he's this is what he does. He's interviewed, I think more starting out hip hop artists, then also, of course, like Tiffany Haddish, like all those kind of jazz.
His channel has garnered billions of views and spawned no shortage of feuds, outbursts, or memes. Away from providing bi-weekly dispatches in the Lord Jamar and Eminem beef, Vlad produces noteworthy moments even when he doesn't get the interview.
Okay, so he's kind of known for basically pulling out like controversial like topics or beefs with people. But I want you to see this as well, because this is an omission apparently from DJ Vlad as to why he does what he does. And this is why I think, to Mark Lamont Hill's point, why some people in the industry just don't respect him. Listen to this.
The problem being that, as we see the patterns that perpetuate in Vlad's content, his reputation only seems to worsen among both industry vets and newcomers. In terms of years of activity, Vlad could conceivably be seen as a vet in hip-hop, but instead, he's regarded to be something held at arm's length. So all that he's beset by ill feelings these days, Vlad's career started out unassumingly, filling what he saw as a gap in the market with a West Coast-based mixtape operation. When you think about it, will we be getting bi-weekly dispatches from Lord Jamar that actually hit the news cycle if it wasn't for the rant inciting questions posed by Vlad? I was really the first person to ever do that because I really didn't have an outlet, Vlad recalls. I lived in the Bay Area in California and there was no Africans on Canal Street over there, so it was really all I could do.
You hear that? There were no Africans on Canal Street over there, so it was really all I could do. Listen to this.
Never one to rest on his laurels, Vlad then brokered his mixtape Acclaim into in-depth interviews that were available for home purchase. When the DVD bubble inevitably burst, Vlad had to evolve or die, and in many ways, he spearheaded the YouTube interview as we know it today. It was just a YouTube channel, so people were wondering why I would call it that name. Now we're like the number 10 news channel, and that includes ABC News, Associated Press, and all those. We're number 10 on that list. You gotta see the vision early. These hustles don't stay the same. Armed with a...
So you hear that? So to DJ Vlad, this is just a hustle for him. This is just a hustle. He's listed as a top 10 news channel on YouTube. That's including mainstream media in that category. But for him, it's just a hustle.
Keen eye for the next big thing and an unwavering work ethic, 2009 would see him garner the position of Executive Vice President of SRC Records. Now, Vlad's steadfast commitment to the grind has landed him in, if a BuzzFeed interview from 2014 is to be believed, a 700 square foot home in the millionaire's playground of Calabasas.
So you hear that? So he was able to make a lot of money off of this. Calabasas, this is where the Kardashians lived, in Calabasas. So just to let you know what type of community that is. Yeah, Carrie. So he saw a way to make money. Yeah, he saw a way to make money.
But while it's clear that he knows how to monetize hip-hop, the question lies in whether it benefits anyone other than himself, or if it's actually proven itself to be a detriment to the wider culture.
And that's the question a lot of people have. Is this actually helping the culture, or is this actually making the culture worse? So that all started because of this beef with the diss tracks with Drake and with Kendrick Lamar. That's where all that started. And then we have to ask questions about people like DJ Vlad, who apparently got invited to the cookout at some point and hangs out with all the rappers, and everybody kind of gives him the thumbs up and he's cool with everybody. But the moment, someone disagreed with him on Twitter, whether you agree with her or not, he wanted to threaten her job. That Karen type of behavior. Now to circle back to Kendrick and Drake. Apparently there was a shooting outside of Drake's home today. I know. Nico says there was a shooting outside of Drake's home in Toronto. I kid you not. Listen to this.
A shooting has occurred outside the home of Canadian rapper Drake, the incident occurring in the wake of Drake's ongoing beef with fellow rapper Kendrick Lamar. CP24's Courtney Heels is on the scene with more. Courtney, we see the police tape behind you. What more can you tell us?
Good morning, Marcy. I can tell you there is a pretty heavy police presence along this road. This is Park Lane Circle. It's the street that Drake lives on. This is as close to the scene as we can get. You can see they have a Toronto police van here, a couple of officers blocking the road, also yellow police tape here too. Now, Chopper 24, that's our newsroom helicopter, was able to get over Drake's home earlier. And in that video, we saw some yellow police tape in the courtyard of his home. Also some people going in and out of the house. And as you reported, that CP24 reporting there is a source confirming there was a shooting outside of his home. We do not know if Drake was home at the time, and this is all happening in the wake of this ongoing feud with another artist, Kendrick Lamar. We don't know if there's a connection here just yet. We are in touch with Toronto Police to see if they can share any more on this investigation. They are staying pretty tight-lipped, but what I can also tell you, police are sharing that they are investigating a shooting in this general area where we are. This is the Bridle Path neighborhood neighborhood. Police say they were called to the Lawrence and Bayview area at about 2 a.m. That's really close to where we are. At that time, that was a shooting investigation, and police and paramedics told us a man, an adult, was rushed to hospital with serious injuries, and they were still looking for a suspect seen leaving the area. Now, we've reached out to police to see, okay, is that shooting that was clearly very close to that connected to this one? They're just not saying just yet. We expect an update on this pretty soon, especially given the attention this is getting this morning right now. But the latest on this breaking news, a shooting outside of Drake's home happened sometime overnight. We don't have any further details. We don't know if the artist was there, but this is a pretty significant police presence in this neighborhood. Marcia, as I say, this is as close as we can get. I was actually on the other side of the road here, and again, entirely blocked off by cruisers, and we can not really see from this vantage point, but our chopper overhead was able to show us police in the courtyard of the home, and there's some yellow police tape up there too.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. When I first saw this earlier today, people were like, "Was it DJ Vlad?" No, I don't. I don't think it was DJ Vlad. Obviously, Ty says, "Is Drake a gangster rapper now?" I know, right? Because there's a shooting outside. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's just a coincidence. I don't think this is related to like the diss tracks, obviously. But it is interesting that happened. But then there was something else that made me think about this, and I'm like, what if this was just all planned? What if this was just all a planned distraction? And there was something that Colin tweeted that I think people need to see. Shout out to Joe Nice DJ for making this point. I didn't know that Drake and Kendrick were signed to the same label. But yes, this whole beef is nothing more than a distraction and really a waste of time. So check this out. This is coming from Joe Nice DJ. For those keeping score, Kendrick Lamar is signed to Universal Music Group. Aubrey Graham, Drake, is signed to Universal Music Group. The CEO of Universal Music Group is Lucian Grange, a pro-Israel billionaire and Zionist supporter. Does that name sound familiar? You're about to see why. Lucian Grange is a defendant in Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puffy, whatever his name is, court case. Okay, all right. This just in. Kendrick versus Drake is a distraction. This BS takes away from Israel and their continued genocide of Palestinians in Rafah. It also turns down the heat on Sean Combs. If you think a fake rap beef is for the culture, you might need to consider other activities. So that was very interesting. And I thought about this as well. Like now everybody, are they all distracted by this? The diss tracks going back and forth. I kind of fell into it too, instead of what is happening to Palestinian people in Gaza. This is something to think about. And Danny brought up something here as well that I want to mention. For all the other artists, Beyonce, your queen, but what has she said about Gaza? Kendrick Lamar, your GOAT, but what has he said about Gaza? Zendaya, you're everything, but what has she said about Gaza? Your favorite celebrities have given the most cowardly endorsement of an Israeli-U.S. genocide. Silence. Now, to that point, I will say Drake actually did come out in support of the Palestinian people. I haven't heard that from Kendrick. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I haven't heard that. But somebody did decide to bring it back to what's important. And I want to bring this up here. I can't play it again, but it's based as hell. Okay, I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this by now. We'll play it on call-in tonight. Macklemore actually decided to bring it back to what we should be focusing on. And I think this is really important. Macklemore dropped Hens Hall. Once it's up and streaming, he said all proceeds will go to UNRWA. So he released a song about Gaza and about the protest and about police brutality. And he did a really good job here because he said, he called out Joe Biden. He said, no, I'm not voting for you in the fall. He called out the police state and the police state presence, all while giving a shout out to Ice Cube and Eazy-E for educating him when he was young, telling him to fuck the police. He brought attention to that. He called out Zionism. He called out the politicians being funded by AIPAC and all these other lobbies. At one point during the song, he said, you can buy, what did he say? You can buy Meta but you can't buy me. So he called out, Meta/Facebook, whatever it is today. Like, he actually did a really good job. And I was not expecting to hear a song come from Macklemore. That was not on my table this week. But the point that I want to bring back to is this. I felt like when that song dropped by Macklemore, it kind of brought everything back into perspective, which is, wait a minute, what are we doing? He called out Drake in that song too. He said, I don't need a response from Drake. This is not to say that we can't have our fun and entertainment. But sometimes I wonder if these things are just designed. Like, was this beef designed? Was it just to turn our attention elsewhere? And so Macklemore brought that all back. And there's something significant about that song that I want to shout out here. They brought this up in The Independent. Macklemore releases pro-Palestine track Hens Hall as he hits out at Drake versus Kendrick Lamar beef. Notice how they phrase that. Okay. Like that wasn't the way it was done. He gave a shout out to someone. There's a sample here. And some of you may be familiar. The song samples Anna La Habibi by Fairuz, the popular Lebanese singer known for her vocal support of Palestine. In Hens Hall, Macklemore, real name Benjamin Haggerty, covers everything from American politics, capitalist greed, social media censorship, and white supremacy in less than 3 minutes. So I thought it was great that he gave that ode there to Fairuz, because that's important. Obviously, someone who has been vocal about Palestine. Yeah, she is. I know Brown Bunny. Brown Bunny. She's a great singer, by the way. Yes, she is. She is. So I think that it was nice that somebody came in and brought it all back into perspective. And that's kind of like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of how I see it. I thought that was nice that happened. We'll play it. We'll play the Macklemore song on Call In so you can hear it. It's like 2 minutes. Like, he said a lot in 2 minutes. I'm just telling you, he said a lot in 2 minutes. So, and it didn't have to be him. It could have been anybody. If Kendrick Lamar would have dropped that song, I'll be saying, yo, Kendrick Lamar dropped this song about Gaza. If Drake would have dropped it, I was saying they dropped this song about Gaza. But it seems like Macklemore was not the first one, because other rappers have before, in the past as well. But it seemed like he dropped it at a time when there was a lot of attention that was focused on the diss tracks, etc. So it makes you wonder, what's wrong, Danny? Danny said he could have been DJ Cat. I wasn't going to say anything, but I knew someone would bring it up eventually. Where is DJ Khaled? Who is Palestinian? Where is he at? Why is DJ Khaled so silent? That's another thing that's mentioned in that song. As he mentions, he's like, where are all the other artists? Why are they silent on this issue? Interesting. Be Easy says Drake grew up in a gated community with his white Jewish family, and that is nothing wrong with that. But where did he learn to say the N-word so much? Hashtag not like us. Oh, that's a good question, Be Easy. That's a good question. We talk about it again. We'll talk about this on Call In, you guys. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, and then we're going to get to that debate, which I thought was pretty awesome. Jig says DJ Khaled sold out. Yeah, it's really disappointing. Rich says when two vegans get in an argument, is it still called a beef? You know what, Rich? Let me go. Let me move on. Shout out to Kevin. Thanks for drawing a distinction between J's and Z's and exposing entertainment BS. Angie, Drake denies all of his kids. LOL. I don't know about that. That's interesting. What? Thank you, Tony. Bruce of USA Catalogs got a total sex change fact. I don't know who that is. I don't know. Enric says Vlad needs black attention to keep his vampire heart beating. You vampire heart. You guys are cruel tonight. JB, he knew his privilege and used it as a weapon. This is why many of us black people keep our distance for an extended period of time. That's right. Laverne says, is why Vlad is believed to be an agent, Sabby. Oh. Thank you, Roger. Holy crap. Vlad turned into Michael Crapaport. Roger, I'm surprised you didn't see that on Twitter. Yeah, it was something. Janine, he disrespected Minister Farrakhan on his show and refused to take his comments back. Ooh. I'll have to look for that one, Janine. I haven't seen that interview, so I'll have to look for that one. Thank you, Foe. Vlad is an informer. He keeps beef alive and talks people into ratting themselves off. What's up, Buster? Just read a security guard was shot. Oh, that's in reference to the Drake shooting outside his house. Ay. Thank you, Buckeye fan. Universal is the largest distributor of music. Kendrick is independent with PG Lang, but most artists distribute their music through Universal. Interesting. And thank you, Flower Bro. The first time I heard about white privilege was from a Macklemore song in 2001. Say what you want about his music. He has been speaking truth since the beginning. Thank you, Flower Bro. Let's get the comment on Rockfin. It's the rock to the fin. It's the rock to the fin. Rock to the fin. Rock to the fin. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Amen, Sabby. I felt the same way about Drake, but also his family, Wayne and Nicki. To be honest with you, I was never impressed with Kendrick and Meek either. You had Biggie, Pac, Nas, Jay-Z, Ludacris, DMX, who was the best out of all of them. Cool, but compare all of them to Rakim, Cool G, Rap, Cool G Rap, KRS-One, Kool Moe D, LL, MC Lyte, Shantae, Kane, Run DMC, Grand Poobah, Maxwell, Melly Mel, Slick Rick, real lyricists. I didn't grow up with them. I'm a millennial. Okay. And thank you for this as well. They're signed to the same label. Okay, I'm convinced this was a publicity stunt by record company to pump them sales up. Drake is Jewish, Khaled is Palestinian, but Jews express support for Palestinians. Don't forget Sab, LABIs. Yes, I know. Interesting. I'm a millennial. All right, guys. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. We're going to get into this debate here on Breaking Point. So this is the first time I've seen Krystal and Saagar have a debate on Breaking Points. I'm kind of used to seeing this with Bree and Robbie on Rising. Those can get kind of heated sometimes. But this time I saw a side of Krystal that I never saw before. Like, I think Saagar was just taking this like, okay, whatever, no biggie. But Krystal made it very clear that no, this is a problem. And I think you guys are going to want to see this. I was surprised, but she really did push back here. And I know that's one of the criticisms I had in the past, like earlier on Breaking Points when they first started. I felt like she didn't push back on some of Saagar's talking points. But that changed during this particular segment when they talked about the issue that happened at Ole Miss, where the guy in the fraternity was making monkey noises at the black woman that was in front of him. And I guess that was some of his fraternity brothers, the crowd. So she was a pro-Palestinian protester and he was just American first protester. Those guys were not pro-Israel. So that's important for people to understand. But this got a little heated and I want to chime in because there's something Saagar did here that I'm not sure a lot of people noticed. Watch this.
About order and disorder and student safety. I actually do care about all those things, just not willing to say that words are violence, which is part of a segment that we'll get to, and that people being snowflakes and hearing dangerous chants is upsetting. However, if you have people who are actually firing fireworks and are beating people up, and then you allow that to happen, terrible, right? Absolutely terrible. And you are absolutely correct. You don't have a lot of people in media even condemning or even frankly commenting on some of the stuff here, which is just pretend that it doesn't exist. Very, very common amongst a lot of the Israel First crowd. Let's go and put this next part up here on the screen. There was, let's just say, a troubling incident that broke out over at Ole Miss University. You had kind of frat brothers versus some of these Palestine protesters. Some people were...
Pause it right here. So I covered this video last week. I want to say last week I showed this video on here. And, you know, this gentleman here was making monkey noises at the black woman. Now they didn't play the audio on Breaking Points. I'm not sure why. I think they should have played the audio so that their audience can hear what he was actually doing. So there's that. But it was interesting that I actually had covered this before mainstream media even talked about it. And a lot of us on social media we were like tagging mainstream media like, oh, Dana Bash, are you going to talk about this? Dana? Jake Tapper, are you going to talk about this? Fox News, are you going to talk about this? Or are you just going to ignore it? Because it doesn't fit your narrative. And that's for all of those networks, by the way, whether they are right-leaning or left-leaning. So this guy here, again, he was making monkey noises at the black woman there. Okay? So listen to how Saagar describes it. See, this is what I was talking about. It gets worse. Just wait for it. Okay, right here.
A troubling incident that broke out over at Ole Miss University. You had kind of frat brothers versus some of these Palestine protesters. Some people were saying that they were mocking this woman, this Palestinian protester who is black, and they were calling him a racist. This man has already actually been expelled from his fraternity. So you've seen an outbreak of kind of like fraternity versus Palestinian.
Pause. So that part right there, Saagar says that people were saying that they were saying racist things towards the black woman. Again, I don't know why Breaking Points did not play the sound of that video, but all Saagar had to do was to watch the video for himself and he would have heard what was actually happening. So that was kind of weird to me that he said people are saying. Okay.
Wouldn't call it violence per se, but I guess clashes on campus, people screaming at each other, kind of like that. So I guess as a former frat boy, let me just say to all my brothers out there, don't ruin your life for the sake of literally getting expelled and trying to go viral on social media. I would just.
Why does Saagar have to give a warning to guys that are part of a fraternity? Why does he have to give them that warning? Shout out to all my frat brothers out there. So I'm assuming he was a part of Greek life. Why do you have to tell them that, Saagar? Why do you have to tell them not to basically be racist? Why do you have to tell them that? Did anybody catch that, or was that just me? Okay. So here's Saagar attempting to kiss up to his fraternity brothers and fraternities in general, probably because Saagar still wants to maintain those kind of circles. And I say this as someone who I was a part of Greek life. So I know I got some stories for you. We can talk about it tonight. Okay. We can talk about it tonight on Call In. I was a part of Greek life. I know what goes down. And I've seen some things. I wouldn't sit up here and defend it though. This is where Krystal comes in. I think Krystal comes in a little hot. She is not feeling it.
Of literally getting expelled and trying to go viral on social media. I would just advise you not to do that and think about your future, as I had talked about previously for protest.
Can we put that back up on the screen? Put that back up on the screen. Okay, because what you see here, you got these dudes, mocking her, calling her Lizzo, right? All of that. Okay, that's one thing.
Notice how Krystal said, can we put that back up on the screen? Saagar was going to let that go. You see how this works, guys?
Then you have this guy who's making monkey noises and pretending like he's an ape at a black woman. And what you have here is a Republican member of Congress tweeting this video positively and saying, Ole Miss taking care of business. So it's not, people weren't saying that they're mocking. No. You have a man making literal monkey noises and gestures at a black woman. It is as textbook racist as you could possibly get. And this Republican member of Congress is like, yes, I like this. This is good for me.
So why did Saagar gloss over that story the way that he did? And had Krystal not been sitting there next to him, and let's say it was just him hosting that segment, he would have never brought that up. You see how he tried to just gloss over that and pretend like, oh yeah, well, people were saying. No, there's no people were saying. All you had to do was watch the interview. All you had to do was watch the video yourself. I saw this myself. We covered this a couple of days ago. So why did she have to be the one to tell you to put that back up on the screen?
Agree that we should call out the Republican congressman, but in the same way, Krystal, we shouldn't elevate a single person from this thing and say that this is who they all are.
Here's why it's important. Because when it's a single anyone associated with the, ceasefire movement, with the anti-war movement, then this is representative of the whole movement, right? And we have to get a presidential decree, multiple presidential statements and a press conference about how they're vile anti-Semites. But when you have like the most racist shit imaginable, oh, well, that's just a one-off.
That's one guy.
That's just a one-off.
The rest of the guys are there and they're just shouting at him. That's fine. I don't think there's.
Yeah, but Saagar, even though it's one guy, the point is you overlooked it. You weren't even going to mention it. That's a big part of the problem. Also, I seem to remember some of the responses that Saagar had during the George Floyd protest. See, some people forget. I don't forget those things. I remember the way that he responded to people protesting, even the peaceful protests. He's against it. He was against it. He said some things that was a little, had me looking a little sideways. I started asking questions about. I'm like, wait a minute now. What are you trying to say, Saagar? And this is where we bring up this idea of people of color. Because in the United States, what Saagar is showing you as a great example, as you see right here, when people say people of color, this happens to people of color go through this. Saagar is showing you that even as a person of color, he wasn't even willing to tell you the truth about what happened to that Black woman. He was willing to overlook it and protect his fraternity brothers. But people of color, though, right?
Anything wrong with it. So more what I would say is, I think, unfortunately, there's been a bit of some left hypocrisy here where everybody's like, no, see, like all these kids are racist. No, here's what happened. At UNC, those Palestinian protesters took down an American flag. Stupid idea, by the way. And then a bunch of UNC frat bros surrounded and defended the American flag.
This was not UNC. This was Ole Miss. So what happened at UNC has nothing to do with what that guy said to that woman. So now here is Saagar trying to blame the behavior of the students at the University of North Carolina. He's trying to use that as an excuse for the way that kid behaved towards that woman. I want to say something very clear, as someone who comes from Greek life and someone who went to college in the South. Racism in the South is more overt. In the Northeast, it's more covert. Racism happens everywhere. But in the South, it is very much overt. What you saw that kid doing is not something I have not seen before. And I'm willing to bet you that's not the first time he did it. And I'm willing to bet you that his buddies that were standing right next by him have seen this type of behavior before. So even if they're not the ones that are saying it, they're complicit with it because they're allowing it to happen. And I didn't see none of those guys try to check him and say, no, that's not cool. Okay, so here's what Saagar won't tell you, mister. Got to look out for my fraternity bros. No, wrong is wrong. Like, put your social bubble aside, put your privilege aside for a second. Why are you trying to defend this organization that has been known to be based on status and class alone? And I say this, and I said this before, I say this as someone who's a part of Greek life. There were good things about it. There were bad things about it. Is it a necessity? I would say no. Do you have to be a part of a Greek life organization to be successful in life? No, you don't. But they will convince you that you do. Everything that I got in my life, I got because I had help from my parents or I got it on my own. Me being a part of a Greek organization didn't give me any type of leg up, a status, or anything in my life. So what Saagar doesn't want you to know is that, first of all, when we're talking about class, because they're populists, right? They like to talk about class. It's a status symbol. It's a status symbol and it's classist. And at the time that I was a part of it, I didn't look at it that way. I believed the things that I was told. You need to be a part of this in order to network and to get a great career and all this yada yada. No, you don't. And I've seen some of those frat boys do unbelievably despicable behavior. And I've seen some of the sorority girls and the frat boys stand right by there and let it happen. Which is what Saagar's making excuses for right now. Instead of protecting and defending the woman that just basically had these racist epithets kind of thrown towards her way, Saagar is trying to find a way to defend the oppressor. Make it make sense, folks. But people of color. Let's go on.
While they were pelted with trash. Again, explicitly aligning yourself against the U.S. flag, wouldn't advise it in the United States. Those people went viral. And basically, from then on, all frat brothers around the country are like, okay, we got to get involved in this. So again, I would say to my brothers out there, please don't do this. Do not engage in racist mocking of protesters because it's not going to work out well for you as it worked out in this instance. But I do.
No, you should don't engage with racist behavior with protesters because it's not going to work out well for you. Shouldn't the response be don't do that because it's racist? Like, what? And he's not taking this seriously. Look at the smirks and things that he has. So again, I'm here to let you know, when I'm walking down the street, when Saagar's walking down the street, we don't have the same life. Saagar is not dealing with the same type of issues that I have to deal with. This is where I push back on the people of color. This is what people have to understand. Saagar can sit up there because he is white adjacent. He can stand there and he can stand side by side with the same dude who made monkey noises at the black woman. Does everybody see it now? Let's go back a little bit. Because Krystal was not feeling this. She comes back.
In the United States, those people went viral. And basically, from then on, all frat brothers around the country are like, okay, we got to get involved in this. So again, I would say to my brothers out there, please don't do this. Do not engage in racist mocking of protesters because it's not going to work out well for you as it worked out in this instance. But I do think it's important to say that just because one guy did it doesn't mean that all of them are racist for coming up and for shouting against them. And I have seen, unfortunately, a lot of people use the same tactics, which I don't think is fair. Because it'd be like saying that all of the campus protesters are anti-Semites because one guy who like barely even goes there said something about Jews. And it's like, well, that's not really what it's all about.
I don't think Krystal said that. I don't think Krystal said, look at the look that she's giving him because she knows this is full of shit. She knows this is bullshit. I don't think Krystal said it's all of them. She called out specifically that one kid who Saagar didn't even want to talk about, didn't even want to point out what actually happened.
So and I just wanted to put that out there because I don't think it's fair.
But I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy on the other side where, as I said, one incident can be used to tar an entire movement as anti-Semitic, whereas here, this is not even acknowledged. And actually, to the extent it was acknowledged, it was celebrated. And the governor of the state also, celebrating and lauding, saying it warmed his heart, these individuals at Ole Miss. So fine, let's be fair-minded and focus on what one side stands for and what the other side stands for. Let
me say one thing here. Where were all the politicians that spoke out against this incident? Where were they? Where were they? Where was Bill Ackman? Where are all these people? Where was Michael Rappaport, Mr. Big Mouth? Where was he at when this happened? Oh, because it happened to the wrong type of person. They don't acknowledge that.
Stands for stopping a genocide. The other side stands for
That's not fair, though, with these kids. They're just pissed off because people have taken over their campus.
What is their movement about? What is the pro-Israel movement is about?
But they're not pro-Israel.
Let's continue slaughtering children. That's what the conflict is about. And so, yeah, I agree with you. To focus on who are they and are they racist? What are they saying? Whatever is to miss the point. of what these protests and counter-protests are about. The protests are about, let's stop a genocide. The counter-protests are about, let's continuing. So yes, okay, let's have that conversation.
But I don't
because
think
this
it's
is all a
fair.
distraction from the real issue that these kids are out there protesting about.
Well, we will have.
You know what was really sad though? If you look at the comments under this video, it's really bad. A lot of the comments are against Krystal. And this is what happens when, and I'm sorry, but I gotta say it. This is what happens when you choose to just focus on a populist agenda and say, don't talk about, let's just focus on the class issue. When something does happen and you finally do start to have those discussions, a lot of people in the audience are turned off. Look at the comments under this video when you get a chance. There's some racist shit in the comments, but look at the comments under the video when you get a chance. And that'll tell you what's been happening over at Breaking Points.
Our real discussion, absolutely. But I'm saying I don't think it's fair to say that people who are annoyed about protesters who are coming on their campus and who are screaming and shouting and are basically like going out there to mock them and be like, hey, please get out of here because we don't necessarily agree with you. I don't think that means that they're pro-genocide. In fact, I didn't even see a single Israeli flag amongst a single one of those guys. Like I said, it was a huge mistake for those UNC idiots to take down the American flag. I don't know why they had to do it, but they decided to do it. And it's like, if you want to put yourself against America, you are going to get a lot of people who are coming out there
why
who
do you
defend
have
the flag.
such
Yeah.
vitriol
There's no vitriol
towards people who, took down a flag, but so much less to this man making monkey noises at a black woman. And you want to excuse him and you want to call them idiots.
Excusing him.
Oh, that's the question. You know why, Krystal? Because, and this is something I noticed about Saagar. I told you guys I noticed this during the George Floyd protest, because Saagar don't really want to fuck with those kind of people. Saagar ain't really thinking about those kind. Like I said, at the end of the day, you already know what side Saagar is going to be on. He ain't going to be over there fighting for us. He's made this very clear. He made it clear during the George Floyd protests. So when people say, oh, well, no, don't support the Palestinian people, they don't like us. Who was out there with us during the George Floyd protests? There were Palestinians out there with us during the George Floyd protests. I don't remember seeing Saagar in the streets. I don't remember seeing Krystal in the streets either. I don't see any of them participate in any of these things. Out there with the people, with the platform that they have. I don't see them trying to use that platform to mobilize people to get out in the streets. And that is very disturbing. But Saagar is showing you exactly who he is. And don't come at me and say, oh, well, he had that one black guy who's his friend Marshall, who was on Breaking Points at one point. And I hope Marshall listened to this conversation that Krystal and Saagar had, because he's letting you know where he stands.
I think I said he was an idiot, and I don't think you should ruin your life for that. I absolutely don't condone what he did. What I'm saying, look, it's also about convincing people. Taking down the flag of your country in your own country is a dumb idea. I think it was huge. It was a backlash. There's a reason that it all went viral. I don't have vitriol for anybody. In fact, I'm just trying to analyze it in terms of like which one is going to be more popular. But I'm not in the business, just as I'm not in the business of smearing, protesters as anti-Semitic, as a bunch of frat kids as racist, because I've seen this happen. I was in a fraternity, everybody, pro-sexual assault and all this other bullshit. And I see a lot of the media basically participating and trying to cancel or use the same tactics that I think Zionists are using as the counter-protesters, and I don't think that's appropriate.
When protesters take down the American flag and put up the Confederate flag, does Saagar speak out against that? Huh? When Nazis and the Klan protest in Columbia, South Carolina, in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, where I graduated from undergrad, and they put up the Confederate flag because it was at the State House at that point in time. They said it was a memorial. This is a whole controversial thing. We don't need to get into that story tonight. We'll be here all night. But when they have those things, when they make those statements, does Saagar speak out against that? Why is it only the time when it is people from the marginalized groups that have these actions and these statements, that's when he wants to speak out against it? It's what I tell you. So he says, I was in a fraternity too. I don't like to hear those things. Yeah. That was a long time ago. You're not in the fraternity now, bruh. Okay? Just let it go. Oh, it's for life or whatever. You're not in college no more, Saagar. It sounds like this come across kind of personal. It sounds like some people may have made some statements about Saagar when he was in that fraternity, and that's why he's so quick to defend the fraternity guys.
What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I don't really believe in terms of that these guys are pro-genocide. I think that they're participating in a social movement where for a lot of the people in this country, it is annoying to have this happen. And so they're coming out and they're like yelling. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. You can think that one side is more moral if you'd like, but for a lot of people, they either don't care or they think this is worth to come out and just like make fun of people, which again is a fundamental American right.
Look, I support their right to be assholes. That's part of what the First Amendment is. But I think we should stay focused on what the actual issue is that is being protested. And sorry, I don't think one side is more moral than the other. One side is more moral than the other. I don't think that there could be an issue that is more clear-cut at this point when you have so many children slaughtered. We're going to cover this in the Israel segment. Every single child in Rafah right now is either malnourished, sick, or injured, okay? So, yeah, there is a morality gap between the two sides. And I agree with you. It's not fair to take one individual and say this is reflective of an entire movement, but that is what's been done to the pro-Palestinian students. And suddenly, when it's these kids or when it's the UCLA counter-protesters who were the ones who were 100% violent, it's either completely erased or they're actively celebrated. That's what I'm upset about.
I totally agree with you. And look, I mean, we can't.
Did you see the look that she gave him?
We can't control what the rest of the media does. We can only try and, cover it the way that we can here. And I don't think, we're.
But you didn't do a good job trying to cover it there, though, Saagar. That's the problem. That's the problem. No, you can't control what mainstream media covers and how they cover stories. But in this space that you are in on Breaking Points, you did not do a good job of trying to cover that story. You actually did something similar to what mainstream media would do and try to gloss over it because it's the wrong type of person that is being victimized, because it's a Black woman and it's not a Jewish woman. Same thing if it was a Palestinian woman. You are doing the same thing. That's a problem. Now, you say you breaking points. What points are you breaking if you're following the same strategy and the same methods of mainstream media? But Krystal wasn't having that.
Or trying to erase any horrors or any of the other stuff. We have plenty of stuff about that in our show. I do think if you were on the Palestinian side, you should be upset about the way that the media has treated you, specifically MSNBC and so-called fellow travelers. I'm with you. I mean, if I was on that side, I'd be furious about the way that they covered BLM or others. I'm only saying, let's not descend, fight fire with fire or any of that, because I don't think it will get us to a particularly good place. And if anything, history shows it will probably backfire. So I think that's a decent enough lesson.
Hey, guys.
Krystal gave that look that your mom gives you when you messed up. Has anyone ever gotten that look from their mom? Because I got that look from my mom before, and I think we all knew, I did something wrong. I mean, it just is what it is. And that's the look that she gave. Now, that representative, by the way, it says GOP Representative Collins responds to criticism of the Ole Miss Post, because, again, he did actually congratulate that type of behavior. He goes on to say, I understand and respect the feedback that has been shared regarding a single individual during the Ole Miss protest. If that person is found to have treated another human being improperly because of their race, they should be punished appropriately and will hopefully seek forgiveness. Frankly, I did not believe that to be the focal point of the video shared at the time, but I recognize that there certainly seems to be some potentially inappropriate behavior that none of us should see to glorify. You knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing. I'm pretty sure when you get back to Ole Miss with your bros and stuff like that, you make those same types of comments. So I don't even buy that. And I've seen those things in person. But to Krystal's point, where is the mainstream media on this particular incident? College professor Jonathan Yudelman hounding a Muslim woman and calling her a B. So you see, this is what Krystal was referring to. Where's the outrage over this?
You don't like it, go back to jail.
You are literally
I'm literally in your face. That's right.
You're disrespecting my religious
Why are you wearing a mask?
Like,
You're so proud. You should be happy with what you're doing.
Boundaries.
What does this have to do with religion? You're spewing hate. What does this have to do with religion?
Sense of humanity, bitch.
Get the fuck out of my face.
No. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, who invited you here? Yeah. Go back to jihad. Go.
Hate crime.
You're not working.
Hate crime. Hate crime right here. Cops, what are you doing? Hate crime right here.
What's the problem? You guys have an issue? What do you say about the 7th of October? You have an opinion about it? You also glorified it? You're happy about it?
They were literally
or the
just
FBI, huh?
We're literally just
You should
standing
take off the mask. You're proud. No, you're proud, no?
Where's Dana Bash for that incident? Since you like to cover these incidents so much that you claim are happening and you have no proof or evidence about, but you don't cover the things where there's actual videos and evidence. You know, the students haven't given up either. MIT and Harvard students have been threatened by both universities that they are going to suspend those students if they do not leave the encampments. Apparently, the students are still there. In fact, at MIT, the students decided to break through the barrier and actually formed a shield in solidarity with Gaza. Check this out. So you can see from the camera above, this is obviously a chopper here, getting this footage, and you can see the students are forming a line where they're basically creating like their own shield. It's really interesting. So you see like the student, they're like, no, we're not going anywhere. I know that police presence was there the other day as well. Yeah, but MIT is threatening to suspend, those students. It's really interesting. MIT also just got rid of DEI, by the way. I don't know if people are aware of that. And for people who think DEI just refers to, people of color, at MIT, women actually were under DEI as well because MIT is heavily male. So a lot of just think about that they had to do that because of the fact that people weren't choosing to hire women or even female students at one point in time. So they're forming a shield there. And then you can also see here at Harvard threatened hundreds of students with immediate suspension, led a march to interim President Alan Garber's house. So he's the interim president that was basically, I would say, hand-put selected after they removed Claudine Gay. They are saying, Harvard University, we know which side you're on. We know which side we're on. Remember apartheid South Africa. Remember Vietnam. Yeah, so that's a lot of people marching through Harvard Square there. Shout out to the students again doing the damn thing. But I think Krystal really held her own in that discussion. Like I said, I never saw that look from her before, but it was very telling that she gave Saagar a look that basically said, you messed up, right? You messed up. Aye. Let's get to the comments here. We will do call in. Right after this introduction of the BI, we will do call in tonight. So you guys stay tuned and you'll get to actually see that Macklemore video and song if you haven't heard it, because I can play it on Zoom. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Lorez. Wendy says frat boys are just god awful. It can be a mess. I mean, I knew frat boys that were pretty, nice and were not like an asshole, but some of them can be assholes. Baby says Saagar is so disingenuous. He apologizes on behalf of all frat boys. Dwayne says Saagar wants to maintain his privilege. I could see that. Shout out to Arthur Fletcher for becoming a Sabby member. What's up, Arthur? Give him a big whoop whoop in the house. Thank you, Kenman. Saagar is the ultimate Oreo. Damn, Kenman. Oh my God, some of these comments, I don't know. Thank you for the super chat, Betsy. 2/3 of all sexual assaults on college campuses are committed by fraternity members or athletes. That is true. Yep, that is true. Thank you for this, Kenman. Saagar is the ultimate coconut. Kenman, you know what? You dropping bombs today. Where, Kidman. Shout out to Willis. When it's racism, it's always one off after years of it. Thank you, Goba. My dad had a phrase, white ass liquor. There you go. Damn, you guys are brutal tonight. All shots coming out. Pow, pow. Thank you. No one important. Have you seen the clip of Marshall admitting to and actually being a Zionist propagandist? It's an older Electric Intifada doc. I did see that, and I wonder if that's why he's not a part of Breaking Points. Well, I don't see him on Breaking Points anymore. So I wonder if it has something to do with that. I don't know. Let's go to the comment on Rockfin. The chat is wilding tonight. All right. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. They had debates like this before. This was the highest level I've seen since the Floyd protests, also some in between. Saagar was very dismissive like he was here. Saagar doesn't know our history. How I know this was a BP episode in regards to how newly emancipated people, ADOS, had local racist gun laws to prevent us from owning out of fear of retribution for slavery. When he found that out, he was like, wow, had no idea. Yep, there you go. Thank you for this as well. I was saying to myself, see, Saagar, maybe if you knew more about our history, you'd say, wow, more. Saagar dismisses our experience, but pearl clutches on people saying, hey, what's up with your twin fat Saagar? Oh, yeah, he got mad about that. Hey, people, comments were against Krystal. Go to the comments and ask, why is it you're fat one day and slim the next? Sabs spilled the tea on Greek life, threatening me with a good time. Okay. It's interesting. Interesting there. All righty. And then I'm just going to introduce Louisiana and we'll finish this up at the next show, which will be Thursday. We have moved on to the state of Louisiana for 2023 ballot initiative results. You know, we are working our way up to the ballot measures that will be on the ballot this year for 2024. I don't have that many states left for 2023 results. And we are now at Louisiana. Louisiana does not feature the power of initiative for either citizen initiated constitutional amendments or initiated state statutes. Only the Louisiana legislature has the power to bring forth initiatives as legislatively referred constitutional amendment to amend their constitution by voter ratification. The following appeared on Saturday, October 14th, the same day as the governor's runoff race. Here are the results. And we'll start this when I come back to stream on Thursday. We are going to head into call-in. Eric, I'm just going to take a quick break. If you want to go ahead and show those poll results really quick so I have an idea of what people prefer, Twitter Spaces or Zoom. And someone asked this question earlier, just to reiterate. Apparently now on X, you do not have to have an X account in order to join an X space. But I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. We'll head over to call-in.
All right. The poll. We'll have to we'll do the poll at the end. So let me adjust that. So this I'm Eric T. Red, by the way. This is the part of the show where we give Sabby a little break before we jump into what used to be Callin. The old Callin app is now long since defunct, but now we do it on Zoom. And Sabby was also, you can still, well, hey, I better put that poll up now, because if I don't put it up now, and then if she tags the pinned comment, so we're going to be putting the link to the Zoom, and that'll be like the pinned comment, but that means I better get that poll in now. Where is it? Here we go. I got to bring it up on this other screen, and this thing's taking slow to load. But yeah, the poll was about whether you'd rather do them on Twitter Space, on Zoom, or as David was saying, Discord's an option. Although Discord got a little sus. They started banning people at one point, so Discord can be a little political, as far as can be a little censorious, shall we say. Just bringing up that poll now. Got to do a little adjustment. All right, that's close enough. Let's take a look at the poll. Here we go. I'll have to scroll it a little bit. All right. So the question was, do you prefer? How many did we get? We had about 1,200 votes. What platform do you prefer? So we had Zoom at 25%, Twitter Space at 16%. That's pretty close. And I'm not sure taking the trophy at 59%. So something for us to think about as far as those results. We also had a comment come in on that came in late here on Rumble. So I won't be able to show it, but I'll read it out. Thanks for the Rumble rant. Kenman G. Saying Krystal looking at Saagar like she looks at Kyle after. Well, we won't finish that one, but yeah, we definitely had some Krystal and Kyle jokes during the end of that one. And thanks for the super chat, Sean Hurls, sending in solidarity from Scotland. Appreciate that. All right, so let's see. Yeah, like what we were talking about tonight. Let's see. Let me look at my notes. I always like to take some notes about what we've been talking about. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we had the Bernie. Oh, thanks, Dave, for a compliment on the shirt. You know who bought the shirt, David? It wasn't me. But Bernie. Yeah, we had Bernie on. We can talk about Bernie also. We can talk about all these things in the Zoom hangout where we like to hear from you. And Sabby will come back shortly, and then she'll have the link, and we'll get that link posted in the chats, and we can all hang out over there as well. But yeah, like about Bernie, it was like. I always like to fit it into this whole idea of whose side are you on, and really all these things it come down to that. And there's really one side that's about the billionaires and money and power, the 0.1%, and there's the other side that's the rest of us, the 99%, and that's what all these things come down to. And so it's clear that Bernie has chosen his side. He's going to protect the billionaires and the system. And that's, essentially how the whole system works. And, the Israel-Gaza thing, it ties back to, I mean, this isn't, while the Israel lobby certainly, in a sense owns our government and, has a lot of power and essentially control. I mean, it's really about, it's also about the bigger piece. I mean, the Israel lobby is one form of big money corruption. When the war was happening, when all the weapons and everything's funneled to Ukraine for that war, that's not about the Israeli lobby, but it's of a piece. It's about the billionaires and the big money interests running the show. And what I say is whenever we're having discussions about any of these things, if you don't connect it back to that, then you're missing the root cause. And that's what I want to get, really everyone on the left who's really on our side talking about, acknowledging and really pushing, MCDS. It's about money, corruption. And when you recognize that, you need to go to demands. The core demand is to get the big money out, get the corruption out. And when you get to that, then the solutions become more clear. Because how you're going to get the big money out. Well, you're going to have to get serious about things like the campaign finance reforms and fixing the Constitution so that the big money funneling in isn't just simply legal and simply what we do. There's the whole thing with the rapper beefs and whatnot, all this stuff, and a lot of how the system operates is about narrative management. And so things like rapper beefs and celebrity arguments and all this stuff gets a lot of attention because it doesn't threaten the core power structure, right? It's they're perfectly happy if all of us are going around arguing about those things, as long as we're not out there demanding real change. And part of what's happened with Israel Gaza is that it's blown a hole in that whole narrative management, where people aren't willing to just say, oh, we're not going to think about what's happening in Gaza, and we're not going to see all the unalived children, as we'll say, to stay on the good side of YouTube here. And but no, I mean, you can't keep it up when it becomes that obvious. And Yeah, so always tie it back to the money. The other thing I'd say is like when we're talking about the governments of we're talking about Israel and U.S. and does Israel control the U.S. or is Israel a client state of the U.S.? I mean, the real situation is that Israel and the United States are both client states of the billionaires, and that they both work for the billionaire interests, and that's what's really in play here. And so, if you want to really figure out what's going on and the potential fixes for it, you need to recognize that and call it out and get into demanding better. There's my spiel.
All right.
What do you think people are going to want to talk about in call-in?
A lot of things.
So the poll was about, I think it was 16% Twitter, 25% Zoom, 59% don't know.
That's okay. Yeah, I figured most people probably would say Zoom. I know some people just don't like Twitter, and trust me, I understand. Let me put the passcode in here so we can head on over to the call-in segment. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say. We are on Zoom, and I want to put the passcode right here at the bottom, 323644, just in case they ask you. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. So what I usually do is I go ahead and start it on here. So let me go ahead and open up the Zoom just to make sure. I do this just to make sure people can get into the room first. I hate to get off of here and then you can't get in. And I'm like, what did I do? All right. I already see people are coming on the Zoom here. Once again, the mute thing went off, I noticed. Guys, can everyone mute? I don't know why it keeps doing that, but everyone should make sure that they're muted when they come in. Thank you.
And thanks here to Wendy Melly for gifting a Sabby Sabs membership.
Thank you, Wendy Melly. Thank you. Okay, and I just want to make sure I put this on call-in. Or not call in, excuse me. I put this on what do you call it? Substack as well. I don't know why. All right. Yep. Everyone just go ahead and mute yourself. And I'm just going to send this out in the Substack too for people because once I leave the live. And I'm just going to send this out in the Substack too for people. Yep. Everyone just mute yourself. Thank you.
Figure out how to make it a link in Substack. We'll worry about that another time.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it does it right and sometimes it doesn't, but and then I'll just put the password here as well. If someone's new and they're watching, they're probably like, what the heck is this? What is happening?
What kind of show is this? All right, I put it in the YouTube, although it was pinned already, but I put it in Rumble and in Rockfin.
Base. Oh yeah, that's right. Because Rumble, I always forget about that. I wish they would let me do polls on Rumble too, because I feel like you guys get left out when I do a poll because there's no. All right. It looks like a lot of people are already on Zoom. All right, guys, you know how this works on Zoom. If you want to speak, you just raise your hand. And the way you do that is at the bottom of the screen on Zoom. You'll see mute, you'll see start video, participants, chat, reactions. If you click on reactions, then you'll see an option to raise your hand. And that's how we go in order in reference to who's going to speak. Other than that, guys, those of you on YouTube, I'm heading out of here. I will see you live again on Thursday. I believe I have to double check. I believe Jill Stein will be here Thursday. If not Thursday, that'll be Friday. I think it's Thursday though. But other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.